Check, check. Mayor, we have a quorum.
Can everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Clerk, we have a quorum and call this meeting to order at 8:13 p.m. Please call the roll.
Yes, Mayor, we have Councilman Schwartz.
Here.
Sorry. Councilman Belcher. Councilman Goldberg.
Here.
Councilman Organ.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Katz. Deputy Mayor G.
Here.
Mayor Pagan.
Here.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by resolution number 299-2023, sending a copy to the newspapers officially designated for 2024 by way of resolution number 2-2024, filing a copy in the Township Clerk's office and posting it on the Municipal Building Bulletin Board, and the mayor hereby directs that this statement be included in the minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Good evening and welcome everyone to tonight's council meeting. Township Administration present at tonight's meeting are Dean Kaczynski, our Township Manager, Doug Roussillon, our Township Clerk, Kristen DeNorcia, our Deputy Township Clerk, Thomas Rowe, our Deputy Township Manager, Scott Salmon, our Township Attorney, and Ron Goodman, our volunteer cable caster. For the public's information, we are currently holding a hybrid format meeting. We have people in person and on Zoom. If our Wi-Fi at the municipal building has an issue where the Zoom meeting drops, we will aim to retrieve the connection and continue the meeting. The next televised regular council meeting is April 16th, and it begins at 6:30 p.m., with the public portion of that meeting beginning at 8 p.m. Council met in closed session earlier this evening to discuss the following: personnel, DPW update, library update, PSE&G diversion, cell towers, empathy training, Queen Anne Road and West Tryon Ave Township property, legal issues and opinions regarding items on the open session agenda, litigation updates, and Oprah. And before we get to our next order of business, I would like to ask our residents and the media to please refrain from using flash photography, just the flash. Okay, our first order of business is presentations, and we have a certificate of recognition for Mr. Norman Adams, one of our crossing guards. Mr. Manager, can you lead us in that,
Do
sir?
we have anyone from the family of Norman Adams here? Oh, great. I'm going to come down. Okay, it always brings me a lot of pleasure to recognize, especially school crossing guards, and whether it's in the morning rush or the hustle and bustle of afternoon pickups, you can always find trusted, friendly, and compassionate school crossing guards assisting children on their way to school, to and from school. Crossing guards are often unsung heroes, and we say this all the time, who work during the school year to keep our little ones safe in good weather, rain, snow, and sleet. And Mr. Adams, today, we're recognizing Norman Adams this evening, who was a dedicated crossing guard, keeping Teaneck safe for over 20 years, and since 2001. Yes. He certainly handled the hustle and bustle of a very busy street while ensuring the safety of our pedestrians and school children. And Norman's dedication and ability to manage such a challenging location is truly admirable, and I thank you for that. Norman's played a crucial role in the community, making sure that students and parents can cross the street with peace of mind, and his presence and guidance have undoubtedly made a positive impact on the lives of countless people. And Norman is a true hero in our community, and I'd like to extend my deepest gratitude and admiration to Mr. Adams this evening for his unwavering commitment to the community. So that being said, from council, we have a certificate of recognition that reads, to Mr. Norman Adams, School Crossing Guard, the Township thanks you for more than 2 decades of dedicated service. Thank you for assuring our children and neighbors are safe while walking around our community, and my sincerest thank you, and I appreciate all you've done for the Township of Teaneck, Mr. Adams. Thank you.
What, Mr. Adams, wait, Mr. Adams, we'd like to thank you as well. Deputy Mayor Katz first.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I missed the name of the street that you were, what's your crossing at? Oh, wow.
Busy.
Okay.
Busy.
So listen, I think it's very fair and reasonable to say that you have, thank goodness, saved many, many lives over the years and prevented potential horrific accidents. So, we really do appreciate it. You know, it's nice to do the job on a day like, well, not today, but yesterday or tomorrow. But you also do it during the winter, during the really cold, when it's snowy out. So, on behalf of the Teaneck residents, thank you very much for everything you've done for the last 20 years.
Ms. Belcher.
Yeah, I just want to say to Mr. Adams, thank you for your service to our community. Thank you for keeping our children safe. My two daughters probably benefited from certainly crossing guards throughout the years. They're adults now, but thank you for keeping our little ones all the way up to our grown-up children safe. And thank you for your service to the community.
Mr. Schwartz.
Um, just a correction, it's not just the kids or adult children, you know, Councilwoman Organ and I have been jogging or walking for about 15 years, and it's kind of embarrassing, but they always stop traffic for us as well. So, I want to thank you for your service. I'm going to put this out there. Don't answer me now. Maybe at the end, if you have a good story for us, we'd love to hear a story. Like some crazy thing that happened on Vanderland, like the truck flipped over and you picked it up or something. But if you have a great, they probably have heard the stories, but if you have one for us, please, if I don't mean to put you on the spot, but so I just want to say.
Ms. Organ.
Just to piggyback on what Councilman Schwartz said, our new friend Robert stands at Windsor Road and West Englewood Avenue, and when we run, we usually can't breathe by the time we get there, and we're so happy to stand on the corner and talk to him about the day and the weather, and it really adds to our experience, and also gives us a reason not to run and to stop and to talk. But we really do appreciate you as adults, and over the years, we've met so many people who are kind and always have a smile in the morning, and I'm sure that's what you had at your post.
Deputy Mayor G.
I want to echo my council colleagues. Many of us, I think all of us have children, we're all parents, but 3 of us still have little ones here in town. And so we continue to benefit from you. And we're just so unbelievably grateful for your commitment to our town for over 20 years. I can't even imagine. And of course, both, I guess, Mark and Karen will continue to benefit from your services as well when they cross the street. So just thank you so much.
Ms. Goldberg.
Yeah, I just wanted to also say thank you. This pedestrian safety and kid safety, it's one of the issues that we hear about a lot. So I just wanted to say thank you. And that is a very busy intersection. So thank you for your service for everything.
And from the bottom of our hearts, Mr. Adams, thank you so much for your so many years of dedicated service. It's not an easy job, and you help so many people day in and day out, and you've done it for so many years. So from the bottom of our hearts and on behalf of the 42,000 residents who call Teaneck home, thank you so very much. We appreciate you and we love you. And if you want to say anything, please feel free.
I just want to thank everyone for thanking me for being a part of helping the children to cross the road. And I'm thankful that the children obeyed and thankful that they are moving on in the world. And thank the board for acknowledging my service. Thank you for all. God bless everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. God bless you. All right, our next order of business is work session items, and first up is miscellaneous. Does anyone on council have anything under miscellaneous? Seeing no hands.
I do,
Oh,
actually.
sorry, go ahead, Ms. Morgan.
We have a resolution that I'd like to walk on, that the attorney wrote up that I asked the clerk to read. I'd like to see if we have enough, if we can vote to put it on the consent agenda tonight.
I'll second.
But before we second a motion, I think the motion needs to come, then I read the language and then a second. So let me do that for you guys. This is a resolution requesting assistance from the state of New Jersey regarding ongoing protests over the conflict in the Middle East. Whereas in the past 6 months, the township of Teaneck has witnessed a significant increase in protests regarding the ongoing conflict in the Middle East, among other issues. And whereas these protests have taken place within the public right-of-way of the township, on its streets and sidewalks, as well as related county and state-owned roadways. And whereas many of those organizing and attending these protests are not residents of the township. And whereas the increasing number of protests have drained considerable resources from the township, as they require a significant number of police officers from the township to work overtime, as well as resources from Bergen County and neighboring municipalities. And whereas in the past 6 months, the township has incurred approximately $150,000 in unexpected costs in the form of police overtime, which does not include the hundreds of thousands of dollars spent by Bergen County and neighboring municipalities in their assistance of the township. And whereas those unexpected costs also include the Department of Public Works and Fire Department, as well as other administrative costs for the township, such as various logistical supplies, including portable bathrooms and food, among other costs. And whereas a single protest recently cost the township in excess of $50,000, as well as tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to Bergen County and neighboring municipalities. And whereas the protesters have failed and or refused to obtain required permits or pay the associated costs with their protests, leaving the financial burden fully on the township. And whereas the number of protests have remained consistent over the preceding 6 months, and there does not appear to be an end in sight to them. And whereas, while the mayor and council of the township support the core right to participate in peaceful marches, demonstrations, and other expressive activity that is protected by both the United States and New Jersey constitutions, the township cannot continue to financially sustain these increased costs in the long term. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the mayor and council of the township of Teaneck, urge Governor Murphy, Attorney General Platkin, State Senator Johnson, Assemblywomen Hayter and Park, and the state legislator to assist the township with these spiraling costs by and through reimbursement for overtime expenses, logistical support, and assistance from the state police as may be required. And be it further resolved that copies of this resolution be forwarded to the above named representatives, all other members of the New Jersey State Legislature, and to the New Jersey State League of Municipalities. That is the language of the resolution. I believe we had a verse from Councilwoman Organ, and I heard a second from Councilwoman Goldberg. And this is to add it to the consent agenda tonight, Councilwoman Organ, correct?
Correct, as resolution.
107-2024.
And Mr. Clerk, this is a roll call just to add, correct? There's no.
Just to add to the consent agenda as resolution number 107-2024, what we just read into the record. Councilman Schwartz.
Yes.
Councilwoman Belcher.
Are we going to have discussion on this, attorney? Are we, before we vote, are we going to have discussion on whether or not we are going to
This-
proceed as?
This is, thank you, Councilwoman. This is just to add it to the consent agenda, so there is still time for council to discuss as
Then it
well
can
as the
pull.
public.
Okay.
You can pull it and then debate it.
Okay, so we're going to have discussion later.
But
Okay,
as long as it gets pulled, then yes. we can-
sure. Okay,
Mhm.
all right, no problem. I'm going to vote, I'm going to abstain on that right now.
Councilwoman Goldberg,
Yes.
Councilwoman Organ,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Katz.
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor G,
Yes.
Mayor Pagan.
Yes.
All right, resolution 107-2024 added.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Does anyone else have anything under miscellaneous? No, moving along. Next up is old business. Does anyone have any old business on council? Seeing no hands. Does anyone have anything for new business? No hands. Moving on to communications. Does anyone have anything for communications? Next up, committee reports by council liaisons. Mr. Schwartz?
Yes, I did not file a subzoning committee report because we actually did not have a meeting, but I wanted to report back on the public meeting that the subzoning committee hosted as it relates to American Legion Drive and to Beverly Road. There was about 45 people in attendance. There was also about, I think, 70 on Zoom. That I don't have the exact Zoom number. Quite a bit of feedback. We took quite a bit of notes, and the zoning subcommittee, as well as the professionals that were in the room, will be circling back, and we'll be addressing it both internally and then again later on as well with the council in public session. But right now there isn't a formal report. No steps have yet been taken thereafter.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Does anyone else have any committee reports? Ms. Belcher?
Okay, we did not have a meeting for the affordable housing. We have one scheduled for later in this month. But I just want to report that one of the areas in which I'm working on is to convene a meeting with Fair Share Housing to get some intricate details about the new legislation that is affecting our municipality as it pertains to affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Belcher. Anybody else have any committee reports? No, moving on. Council listed items. First up, Mr. Schwartz, good and welfare portion at council meeting.
Yes, okay, I sent an email out to the council, but I don't believe it's in the packet, and I'm not sure if anyone has it in front of them. I'm gonna read it. As everyone knows, and I've been a proponent of not going into extended hours of the morning. I put together on March 20th in my email to council 4 things I'd like to discuss. The first one, which I'm striking and not going to be reviewing. I'd like to review the following. For good and welfare, I motion to modify the code to state that this portion should be a minimum of 1 hour, but shall end no later than 11 p.m. unless by council vote to extend. Frankly, a 4-hour good and welfare is something that is just filibustering the meeting, and that we cannot address any of the people because they can't stay around that late. And while some people may view it as a personal platform, the original intentions of good and welfare were to address residents' concerns, such as illegal dumping on at dead ends and parking and whatnot. So what I'd like to do, and since speaking with some of you, you've asked me to make this 90 minutes, that good and welfare should be no more than 90 minutes, nor 11 o'clock at night. And one of the reasons why, and something that was just brought up, is that after good and welfare, we have resolutions. In the resolutions that we have are important things that really change TNEC that need to be reviewed. And when we rush through that at 1:35 in the morning, we literally just consent agenda and we literally push everything through. That was
Question for you, Mr. Schwartz. Do you want to go through all 3 first, or you want to do one by one for discussion?
I can
to
go.
you.
So what do you want?
Go through all 3 of
Okay.
them, and then
Secondly, any and all speakers must be on camera and list their first and last names. Must. They don't, they get shut down. We can't, the fake names, the fake accents, people that I frankly can't find them on the internet. These people do a great job of hiding in the internet because they just don't exist. It's a danger, and it makes a mockery of our council. If you can't show your video and you can't say write your first and last name, we should not want to hear from you. There's plenty of people I disagree with, and I'm not going to mention their names, but they're on camera and they list their names. Lastly, something you've talked about decorum in the past about hissing and booze and clapping, about maybe asking people to leave if they're going to act like that. That's not something we really had lately, but I thought it'd be important to add. We've more had that in the past.
okay. Thank you for bringing it up, Ms. G.
Okay, so I think the best way to have less good and welfare is to create the conditions where folks don't need to come here and share their opinions. So I think that's where we should start, rather than trying to fix the be over prescriptive in the ordinance for 90 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever. If we don't have things for folks to come and talk to us about, they won't come. So I think that's where we should start. In terms of a minimum of 60 minutes, I don't like that, because what if we don't have 60 minutes of good and welfare? So I think it should be open-ended. In terms of the camera and name requirement, I think there are some people who may not have access to a camera. We have to take into account the unintended consequences of requiring things like these. There might be folks who don't even know how to go into Zoom and change the name. So it just becomes very, we're going to have unintended consequences if we do this, where those who have less access to resources will be impacted. And I know that's not your intent in creating this recommendation. So I would like to not change the way that we've done things. I don't like the hour minimum on good and welfare. I think when people come here, we should hear them. They're all entitled to their 3 minutes. Moreover, we have been getting inundated with emails. Usually I would say, okay, if you can't get to us on good and welfare, send us an email. 5,000 plus emails a day. We can't read all the emails anymore. And so now folks have to come here to hear from us, because they're not getting their emails responded to in a short enough period of time. So I think we just have to be really thoughtful about anything that we implement based on the current status. This isn't what it's going to be every single day. I think we are in a very unique period of time. I hope we can get past this. But the reality is when people come here, they want to speak to us and we should listen to them.
Ms. Belcher. Ms. Belcher.
Yes, I would be against restricting good and welfare to an hour or 90 minutes. I believe also that we have been inundated with emails to the point that our clerk, our IT department has had to send most of our emails to spam, at least mine. So I don't even really get a view as to many of the copy and pasted emails that we get. It's just very overwhelming. So I personally like to have residents come out and listen to them. I think that we're sitting here for the reason of being elected to hear from our constituents. So I do not want to silence them. Thank you.
Anybody else on council? Ms. Organ.
So we went to a hybrid format after COVID when we reopened and came out publicly. Before that, we had guests who could speak to us during good and welfare from the audience, and everybody else watched on channel 47 or channel 77. And that's how I grew up. It was a staple in my house. We watched every council meeting with my father. We sat on the couch. It's what we did. And we're one, if not the only municipality in Bergen County, or one of that has retained the hybrid format, which is fine. There are people that can't get out, and I wouldn't bring that up because they have the opportunity to be on their phones or on their computers from home. It's something that we do. But what has that done? It's elongated good and welfare to a point where people who are sitting in the audience are not able to speak until later in the night. And so somebody that comes in and wants to speak at 8:45 or 9 o'clock may not get to speak until midnight now, and they're sitting here with us. So it's not just the wear and tear on us and us going to work the next day and us doing the business of the town after midnight or 1 o'clock when we're exhausted and rushing through things because there's nobody listening anymore and they're not hearing our answers. But there's that. And so I'm in favor of minimum of an hour, but not past 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock is still a reasonable time for people who have come out to meetings to sit here, listen to our responses, and hear us do the work of the town, pass our resolutions, introduce our ordinances. So that's point number one. Absolutely, the hissing, the snapping, the booing should not be tolerated in here. Everyone deserves respect when they speak. And anybody that reacts like that should be asked to leave. There are people who are waiting for seats now. They should not be for people who show disrespect for the audience or for members of council. The last thing is, and I'd like to add this to the discussion, we didn't discuss it, Teaneck residents should be allowed to speak first. And that to me means coming into council chambers and also speaking on Zoom. And for that reason, I think we need to have names on Zoom and cameras on. The other reason for cameras on is because people, when they're looking at you, tend to be more respectful. There tends to be more decorum. When people are hiding behind a black screen, it's a lot easier to say what you think than when you're looking somebody in the face. And I think that's the problem with one of the biggest problems with the world right now is people feel free to type and say what they want with no consequence or without looking people in the face. So I'm in favor of what you said, but I would like to add 11 o'clock, not 90 minutes. We can go to 11, depending on when we start, at least an hour though. And I'd love to amend our ordinance on this or introduce an ordinance where we allow for Teaneck residents first, whether it's asking for ID and have people seated before, if you're here by 8 o'clock or you're here by 8:15, if you're a Teaneck resident, I'm fine for special occasions. If you're a crossing guard that lives somewhere else, of course, we'd like you and your family to be here, and that can be arranged with the clerk's office. But I think there need to be restrictions now. These meetings are out of control.
Thank you, Ms. Organ. Anybody else on council? Mr. Schwartz, were you hoping to take action tonight, or were you just letting us know so that we could sleep on it while you craft a resolution or an ordinance with the attorney?
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely sleep on it for the next meeting. I would like to respond to
Oh, yeah,
to
please,
the
of course,
comments. It's first, yes, pull the 60 minutes to both of you, 90 minutes. It would be my resolution. I love Sandy Silverberg. If Sandy Silverberg can figure out Zoom and she changes her name, I think anyone can. Not really sure if you can log into Zoom in the meeting and not have a camera. I don't really understand how that works. I don't believe that's the case. But hiding behind cameras, again, that's an absolute, and fake names is an absolute hard stop for me. And I would obviously, that's why we have voting. Definitely, I understand you're saying that you emails and people get lost and they can't communicate with us with emails. My cell phone number is 917-902-9303. I speak to countless residents all day long. I do hope, and my wife's listening, so I really shouldn't say this, I don't get any work done anymore during the day because all I do is talk to residents. So I really I don't think anyone is coming up here and then leaving because he talked to us and never talking to us again for several weeks. Those are my comments, but yes, I'd like people to sleep on it, and I'll start doing some more crafting back and forth.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. I think you have another item under council listed items.
I
correct? Cell
believe that's
towers?
already cell towers. That's already addressed as a resolution, correct?
Okay.
So we're done.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, manager's report. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Not a long report tonight from the last council meeting. Just a reminder to the residents, we have disaster shelter training taking place on April 25th. That's from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. at the Richard Rhoda Center. And we're looking for volunteers who are interested in learning about the basic shelter functions and guidelines and procedures. This is going to be run by the American Red Cross and staff from our Office of Emergency Management. To get some additional information on a copy of the volunteer application, just send an email to oem@tnecnj.gov. That's oem@tnecnj.gov. Just a couple project updates. We're going out to bid for the new tennis court lights at Bote Park and community development block grant milling and paving for a couple streets, one being Schoonmaker, Neldon, Argonne, and Hurleman. The bid opening is going to take place on April 23rd. We're in the process of completing categorical exclusion forms, and this is required for the EPA as it relates to the detention tank that we're putting in Sagamore Park. We're going to have a resolution listed on April 16th for the bioswale signing contract. So again, there is relief on the way for that area of Bell Avenue and Sagamore Park. It's a long process. The township recently submitted our Rossi. I've been told that it's called the Rosie, but I guess it's a north-south thing with Trenton and Bergen County, but I call it the Rossi. So that's with Green Acres right now for review. We're receiving bids as we speak for renovations to East Beverly Road parking lot. And what's going to happen is we're going to do some minor milling and repair work, and then we'll place a nice skim coat of asphalt, and that should be done in time for the opening of the farmers market. And grants this month, we were notified of 6 awards, including the Bergen County Open Space Municipal Park Improvement Program. That was for $146,731, and the fiscal year 2024 U.S. Congress Community Project Funding, and that was for $565,000. We submitted applications to the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs, Local Recreation Improvement Grant Program, the United States Department of Interior American Battlefield Protection Program, and grants to the FEMA Assistance for Firefighters Grant Program. And the last one was for the AARP Community Challenge Grant Program. So we've been pretty successful in receiving awards from the various agencies that offer money, and I'm sure we'll continue to be successful. And Millennium Strategies has done a pretty good job for us. Good. Thank you.
Anyone have any questions for our manager? No, seeing no hands. Mr. Salmon.
Just real quick, the township has received a lot of questions and requests for information regarding our ordinance related to protests, marches, demonstrations, things of that nature. I've received also requests from members of council, including Councilwoman Organ and others, to work on an ordinance that will clarify our township code and procedures. That ordinance is currently being drafted. It'll be council soon for the council's consideration at a future meeting. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Salmon. Mr. Clerk, since we have no ordinances to adopt, our next order of business is good and welfare. Any member of the public wishing to be heard at this time shall come forward and state their names for the record. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person. If you are on Zoom, please list your first name and your last name so our clerk can call on you. We also ask that you turn on your camera when speaking if possible. And before we start, I just want to remind residents that it is budget season, and we would love to hear your thoughts on the budget and other local TNEC issues, because that will help us in crafting a budget for our residents. First up, the ma'am in the front. You, yes.
Thank you so much. Heidi Fuchs, Teaneck resident. Thank you to the Teaneck Police Department and those of the other townships that are called upon to maintain peace when agitators come to our town to disrupt our lives, limit our mobility, and our ability to enjoy religious freedoms and access to our synagogues. Sadly, Teaneck for Palestine has referred to our brave officers as Teaneck Slave Patrol and has accused them of acting an act of suppression when at the last meeting, the doors were closed because we were at capacity. Thank you to the mayor and council members Goldberg, Oregon, Katz, and Schwartz, who showed their support for the Jewish community at last night's event to honor Zaka, Israel's non-governmental rescue and recovery organization. Zaka is made up of over 3,000 volunteers that deploy 24/7 around the world to respond to terror attacks, disasters, and major accidents. Zaka responded to the World Trade Center and Pittsburgh synagogue terror attacks, the Surfside building collapse, and earthquakes in Turkey, Haiti, Nepal, and tsunami earthquake in Japan, and the typhoon in the Philippines, and the volcano eruption in Guatemala, providing on-the-ground assistance for all mankind in search and recovery and whatever else might be needed to assist in mass casualty incidents, showing the greatest respect for all life and humanity. Zaka does not ask the victims' religion, their race, their political affiliation, or their stand on the goings-on in the Middle East, Russia, Ukraine, Somalia, Senegal, or Nigeria. Zaka is a legitimate organization devoted to serving mankind, unlike the AUCC, who claims they are built on the principles of public service, respect, equality, justice, and peace for all mankind. Disrupting an event that honors the noble individuals of Zaka reflects the ignorance and hate that spews from some residents of this township and bust-in agitators. It is imperative that the council upholds and protects fundamental rights, our civil rights, for all members of our community and society. Free speech ceases to be a first right once it crosses the line and becomes incitement to violence, defamation, disturbing the peace, and harassment. Now is the time for the council to act and not allow our beloved township to be overrun by hate mongering, not from outside the community and certainly not from within. Thank you.
Sorry, before we go to Zoom, I forgot to ask if there are any members of clergy here that need to speak sooner rather than later to attend prayer. Oh, sir, bye-bye.
Elliot Schreier, Teaneck resident, 2.5 years, rabbi of Congregation B'nai Yeshurun. As you just heard last night at my synagogue, we hosted an event in honor of Zaka, an internationally recognized humanitarian agency that collects and buries human remains in the aftermath of natural disaster, or in the case of October 7th, mass casualty events. The speaker we hosted last night has testified around the world, including at the United Nations, about the atrocities he witnessed firsthand on October 7th and its aftermath. There have been no legitimate bodies that have questioned the integrity of his accounts, even as there were questions about details reported by other Zaka volunteers who testified about dead babies that, based on forensic evidence, later turned out to be older children, toddlers. There was also no real estate being advertised at this event, no town council resolutions being debated or passed, no Israeli politicians, no representatives of the Israel Defense Forces. There was a humanitarian volunteer sharing, as he did in the UN, what he witnessed this past October. A protest organized by groups that openly celebrate the Hamas atrocities of October 7th gathered outside my synagogue. The leaders of these groups have openly called for violence against Jews, and they unsurprisingly did so last night as well. Like the protest outside of Keter Torah on March 10th, vile rhetoric was thrown at the Jewish community, seeking to intimidate and harass. And once again, at a point that I thought we had hit the bottom here in Teaneck, New Jersey, we managed to dig down further still. I don't really want to comment on the protesters and their supporters. I have nothing to say to them or even about them. I think, and I certainly hope, that their own rhetoric and conduct speaks for itself. But I would like to briefly comment on the many others who don't participate in these protests or even necessarily approve of them, but somehow nonetheless find a way to blame the Jews for them. At every one of these council meetings, there is someone who overtly or tacitly suggests that the anti-Semitism that we see in Teaneck is the fault of the Jews. The Jewish community needs to look in the mirror. The Jewish community needs to ask themselves why this is happening. The Jewish community brought this upon themselves. And you know what? There's nothing new about these claims. It fits into a general pattern of victim blaming in which victims of religious, ethnic, or racial hatred are blamed for the very hatred against them. And it's nothing new to us Jews either. Jews have been blamed for anti-Semitism for thousands of years. But I never thought I would encounter that kind of egregious victim blaming here in Teaneck. And it's consistent. It's been normalized. The kind of rhetoric that we would immediately recognize as outrageously problematic in the context of any other minority has become perfectly acceptable when it comes to the Jews. It is enough. It's enough of the gaslighting. It's enough of the victim blaming. Jews are not responsible for anti-Semitism. And to everyone who does blame us, to everyone who suggests that the problems and disunity in this town are the fault of the Jews, because we're proud of who we are, because we memorialize those slaughtered in the worst anti-Jewish pogrom since the Holocaust, to anyone who does believe that, let me be very clear. You are the problem, not us.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi. Rabbi Friedman.
Daniel Friedman, Rabbi of the Jewish Center of Teaneck, a lifelong Teaneck resident. Very esteemed members of council. I want to just begin by respectfully reiterating my suggestion from the last council meeting for Dean Day to celebrate the decades of service our town manager has faithfully rendered. These last 4 decades to be marked this summer. Public service is a great value, and celebrating its champions it's a way of celebrating the best amongst us. I would like to note that this week marks the 56th anniversary of the assassination of one of my heroes, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a faith leader whose vision championing, and perhaps the most indelible phrase in a life filled with unforgettable phrases, of judging one another based on the content of one's character over the politics of division, grievance, and resentment. A visionary who led to so much progress that radically changed our country for the better. I hope that in remembering him, we can help restore his vision of a society in which a person's path is determined not by the color of the skin or any other element based on identity groups, but based, as he said, on the substance of their character. Dr. King forced American society to ask difficult questions, and in his spirit, I ask one of Teaneck tonight. The Jewish community has made it clear with great dignity and courage that we will not be run out of this town. The unrelenting campaign of harassment for 6 months has only strengthened our resolve, as we all witnessed last night. But I do have a question for our friends and our neighbors. Will you continue to tolerate the anti-Semitism in our township? Will you continue to accept the sophistry of those who claim that it was the resolution passed unanimously by this body that made Teaneck's Jews a legitimate target, as if denouncing a genocidal terror attack was actually taking sides? Will you continue to accept that the Israel-Gaza war, regarding which we all have different opinions, makes the Jews of Teaneck a legitimate target for ongoing harassment? Is that not the very definition of anti-Semitism? Will you continue to accept the canard that an information event about purchasing homes in Israel was a true cause for a hate march against Keter Torah, where we heard chants of return to Auschwitz? Will you continue to believe these things even in the face of the depravity that we saw last night when people came to denounce an organization that picked up the remains of burned and slaughtered men, women, and children, women who had been murdered and then raped and then murdered? Is this legitimate in our township? As Dr. King once said, cowardice asks the questions, is it safe? Expediency asks the questions, is it politic? But conscience asks the questions, is it right? And so we ask our neighbors, does this sit right with you? Your Jewish neighbor would like to know.
Thank you, Rabbi. Are there any other members of clergy in attendance? No. Doug, someone on Zoom, please.
I am bringing in Cone. Please state your name for the record. Feel free to show your camera. Cone family is your Zoom name. They're coming in. Please bear with them. Again, once you get in, Cone family, please state your name for the record.
And please turn on your camera if possible, please.
You are free to unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay. A couple of things. First of all, I want to give a huge shout out and
Oh,
thank.
your name for the record, ma'am, please.
Oh, sorry. Faye Cohn. I'm a Teaneck resident.
Thank you.
Thank you all. First of all, I want to give a huge shout out to the police department for everything that they did yesterday to keep. It seemed like I was there last night, and it seemed like it was like at times very difficult. And I want to just thank them for showing up with grace and with courage to try to keep the peace in our town. Not only were they just doing a wonderful job of keeping the streets safe, but I personally encountered a lot of situations where they were just really gracious and kind to community members. So I want to say thank you for that. I echo the sentiments that the rabbis just shared about really feeling that we need to do something in our town about ending the anti-Semitism and, looking to our neighbors to try to figure out how we make our town a place where Jewish people could again just feel like they could live and worship in peace. And I would want to request also that with these meetings, I think that you're prioritizing Teaneck residents to speak, so we could speak specifically about town concerns, but I also want to request that when people speak on Zoom, that they be required to be on video. Because last time when we had a town meeting, I was up till 1:20 in the morning. So thank you all for taking everybody's comments. But there were some comments that started with a very AI sounding tone. There were a few of the comments where people were not on Zoom, and it started with hello, hi, can you hear me? If any of us receive a phone call like that, we hang up immediately because we know it's AI. And I feel like, especially, we know that there are a lot of people from outside of the township who are bringing hatred and resentment to our town. When people want to speak up here, they should, at a minimum, be able to be required to show their face. Thank you all for everything that you're doing, and thank you for giving me a chance to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Cohen. Mr. Yuck.
Hello, everybody. Phil Yuck, Teaneck resident for 45 years. I want to talk to you about the development, the proposed development on American Legion Drive and Beverly Road. We've had 3 public forums where the residents have spoken. Overwhelmingly, 95+% of the people who spoke at these meetings are against any of this development. The so-called silent majority has remained silent. Nobody has come out strongly in favor of this development. People have toyed around, a couple people have toyed around with maybe it should be this or maybe it should be that, but nobody has come out and said, this is a great idea, except maybe 1 or 2 members on this council. It is not a great idea. It is a bad idea. It's going to radically change our town. And there are other ways, many other ways, to develop affordable housing in Teaneck. I just saw an article, which I passed along to the mayor, about Palisades Park and how they have turned single-family homes into duplexes to increase housing. I don't know that we need to increase housing in town, but I know we need affordable housing, and the ADUs are another way to do it. But when you do a foolish thing, and I've said this before to the council, when you do a foolish thing, when you do a bad thing, Uh, you have to pay the price. You just have to pay the price, whatever that price might be. So if you get sued by the developers, so be it. And if you lose that suit, so be it. Pay the price because it was the wrong thing to do. And now I'm going to ask you to do the right thing and to abandon this plan completely and start from scratch. Let's hear what the residents would really like to do with those properties, if anything, and go from there. One other point, the only possible reasonable development in that area, in my opinion, and by the way, I'm speaking both as an individual, but I know that I represent many homes in my neighborhood. The only reasonable development, I believe, might be senior housing at the end of the Stop and Shop parking lot. The Stop and Shop park, nobody ever parks there, even in holiday time. That lot stays empty. I don't know why Stop and Shop wants that lot. That's the only thing. Other than that, abandon this, please. Stop the madness.
Thank you, Phil. Someone on Zoom, Doug?
Bringing in Ari, please state your name for the record. Feel free to show your camera. Free to unmute, Ari. Please state your name for the record.
Yes, Ari Green, a longtime Teaneck resident. I apologize for lack of camera. I agree. I think it's a great idea. I could have chosen to use a computer with a camera. I didn't because I noticed lots of others, but I think it's a great idea and I think it should be enforced for everyone. And I will do so going forward if I cannot make it there in person. While I have a few comments to make, while I have the utmost respect for the Teaneck Police Department officers who put their lives on the line, I'd like to comment on the lack of law enforcement that I've seen, specifically with regard to moving or traffic violations. I'm in the process of raising 3 children here. I'm trying to teach my children about law and order, how to follow the law, respect the authorities. What do I say to my daughter who just started driving when she sees that some people or vehicles seemingly aren't required to follow the law? What am I referring to? These car rallies or caravans that are mostly coming from outside of Teaneck, from what I understand. I personally witnessed multiple laws being broken in full view of law enforcement, unambiguous, clear violations, such as people hanging out of windows, waving flags, clearly not wearing seatbelts. Why is the Teaneck Police Department not enforcing our laws when it comes to the unpermitted car rallies? And the fact that they don't have permits is another issue which I believe has already been addressed. I have addressed this with multiple of the council members, but I've yet to receive a clear answer as to why our laws that are on the books that are as clear as wearing a seatbelt or not blocking traffic are not being enforced. Besides for my personal reasons, which I just outlined for bringing this up, we as a town are making it clear to those violating our laws that we're okay with it. And they're coming back and they're coming again and again. And we're just reinforcing the fact that maybe we're really not a law-abiding town. And unfortunately, we've seen this move on from simple traffic violations to violence at some of these rallies that I have seen that can be viewed on videos that have been shared by others. I'm very concerned as a parent and as a resident of Teaneck to the message that we're sending to not only people that are coming out of town, but more importantly to our children by not enforcing the law when they can sit there and watch the police officers experiencing these violations and not doing anything about it. And I think with that, I'm going to end my comments and thank you very much for the time. I appreciate all the time and effort that everyone on the council has been putting in. And I mean, no offense at all to the officers of the Teaneck Police Department, who I have the utmost respect for. And I'd like to thank all of you with my last few seconds for all that you do to keep us safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. The lady in the back row. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Aviva Angel, a Teaneck resident. Hi. Good evening, everyone.
Last night, Teaneck faced the challenge to its core values as a group from outside our community descended upon us without a permit, aiming to suppress our religious freedoms and directly targeting the compassionate work of Zaka. This organization, a beacon of humanity, became the focus of an unpermitted protest that not only sought to undermine our principles, but also placed a financial burden on our town. The cost of this unnecessary disturbance was significant. Funds that could have been dedicated to enriching our community, like enhancing our playgrounds, adding resources to our library, or supporting youth programs, were instead diverted to manage this situation. It's disheartening that our resources were strained by a group intent on spreading discord and hate, especially when they blatantly disregard our laws by not securing the necessary permits for their gathering. This brings me to a crucial point: the financial accounting for this disruption. It is only fair that those who organized and participated in this hate-fueled event, without regard for our town's regulations, be billed for their expenses incurred by Teaneck. Our town's funds should serve the interests and well-being of our residents, not cover the cost of illegal and divisive actions by outsiders. Teaneck is built on the foundation of unity, respect, and support for one another. We stand firm in our commitment to these values and to supporting organizations like Zaka, which embody the best of what we believe in. The actions of last night will not weaken us. Instead, they reinforce our resolve to stand together, ensuring our community remains a place of inclusion and growth. In moving forward, I urge us to consider the implications of last night's event, not just in terms of community spirit, but also in financial terms. Let's take steps to ensure that those responsible for undermining our town's peace and resources are held accountable. Thank you for your time and commitment to keeping Teaneck's vibrant, welcoming community for all. Together, we are stronger. I also want to say thank you to Mayor Pagan yesterday you were amazing, and to the town council for everything that they did to make us safe yesterday, and to the police department for everything that they did to keep us safe. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Someone on Zoom, Doug?
Jarabinowitz, please state your name for the record. Unmute. Jarabinowitz at herrick.com. Please unmute, state your name for the record. All right, we will try Rachel K. Please unmute, state your name for the record.
Yes, hi, my name is Rachel Kaplan, a Teaneck resident. So I just want to make it very clear that no one is out here attacking Jewish people. The self-victimization needs to end now, okay? They have to do with people in Teaneck thinking they can support a genocide and not be called upon it. Hosting illegal estate sales within synagogues, that is the issue. We're not protesting against the synagogues or Jewish people. It's the fact that you're hiding these illegal activities within the synagogues to escape sanctions. And that is the issue. Yesterday, there was a huge protest. Yes, indeed. But really, truly, who were the violent ones? The pro-Israeli supporters. There's even a flyer circulating the internet showing that they bust in outside agitators from New York. So who is bringing the outside agitators? And I do want to speak on the police, you know. I appreciate what they do, but in reality, they're very clear. They're here to protect one particular group, right? They were protecting the pro-Israelis, just seen by the way they were facing the both different protesting groups. They were not doing their job by making sure every human being that was there was safe. They were obviously catering to the pro-Israelis. And that is the issue with this county. That is the very issue with this township, because the board members are clearly in support of Israel. So clearly so that one of the board members uses her social media to speak for Jewish people only. Is she here to represent all constituents or just Jewish people? That is the concern right now. So all these resolutions that are being passed is clearly in the benefit of one group. You are not representing the whole population of Teaneck. And that is where we are upset at. We don't care you're Jewish or Muslim or Christian. It's not about religion, and stop making it about religion. It's about morality and humanity. You have lost your sense of humanity, and that is what is very concerning. Also, I want to point out that on March 17th, there was a person hanging out their car out of her sunroof, waving her Israeli flag and driving around AUCC, right? Her plate number is N59NZH, right? I would like her to get a ticket, indeed. So we're here trying to vilify people that are pro-humanity, pro-Palestine. It's a question of humanity right now. It's not about religion. I'm tired of this. There are Palestinians that are Christians too, that are Jewish too. So let's stop making it about religion and stop the self-victimization, because we don't care you're Jewish. It's not about that. So that is what I wanted to mention. And to actually want people to get on camera, that is very unfair. You're targeting people that might not have the means to fix their cameras that are broken. This
Thank
is
you,
very
ma'am.
deliberate.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Ma'am in the front row.
Good evening. My name is Jasmine Ray. I'm a Teaneck resident. So I just want to first start by sharing some definitions. So Judaism is a beautiful monotheistic religion that developed among the ancient Hebrews and is over 3,500 years old. Meanwhile, Zionism is a political movement that emerged in the 19th century with the goal to enable the establishment of an ethno-state for Jewish people in Palestine. Okay. Anti-Semitism is not okay and never should be normalized. However, political movements, specifically political movements, are fair to challenge. I keep hearing the question, when will this stop? And I'm very happy to confirm that there is a real and tangible solution to the concern of indefinite protesting in this town. 1, stop inviting organizations that promote and commit domestic and international crimes and incite violence into our town. 2, deconstruct the callous racism so many of our palest neighbors relentlessly share. And 3, hold the fear-mongering sensationalists that inappropriately use their positioning on town council, both current and former, accountable. Since my words at the last meeting have already clearly been forgotten, I will repeat myself. I am here to demand the immediate dismissal of council members Hillary Goldberg, Karen Oregon, and Mark Schwartz. Someone else already called you out by name and no one got interrupted.
Going by name, yeah. If you can refer to me or just counsel, please.
Absolutely, and I want my time back.
You paused. You're good.
No, it wasn't. I have 3 other seconds that aren't.
Don't worry. I'll keep in mind of it. So we'll give you 3 extra seconds. So please continue.
Thank you. How dare you claim to represent this constituency while showcasing your thinly veiled fascism at every opportunity? You all feign care and concern for the ever-splitting divide in this town while actively fanning the flames to burn a semblance of unity to the ground. You are all complicit, and your legacy left behind this tenure is destined to be remembered as being everything you claim to stand against. That this council was a beacon for violence. How many deaths in Palestine, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Yemen, in the DRC will it take before this township divorces from the violent ideology of Zionism? We have township members carrying guns to intimidate those that speak up with no consequences. Does there have to be a death in these Teaneck streets before our pleas are taken seriously? Also, since we want to talk about hostile settings, I want to highlight all the hatred I was subjected to at the last meeting, being as one of the only 2 Black people in the entire chambers and one of 4 people with an empathetic perspective of the horrors facing those in Palestine and the entirety of the room as well. I was stared at like an outsider and I didn't belong, even though I've lived in Teaneck my entire life, while simultaneously having multiple people try to knock into me and cut me in lines. I've had people attempt to sick the police on me and my friend. People were coughing at me and my friend. Someone was pulling my hair multiple times. I was violently shushed and belittled. I was gaslit by you, Mayor, multiple times. Someone tried to put a camera in my friend's face to try to dox them by taking a picture, even though they didn't speak.
Thank you for your time,
And
Ms. Ray.
of course, all the
Thank you,
racist
Ms. Ray.
rhetoric spewed.
Thank
I
you,
hope
Ms.
you
Ray.
take this.
Thank you, Ms. Ray. Doug, someone on Zoom?
Allison, yeah, sorry, your last name is cut off on my screen. Please state your name for the record.
Allison Gore, REA. Been here
Thank you.
17 and a half years. And I wanted to talk about last night. volunteers flew in from Israel to talk about the work they do at crime scenes all over the world, but this was specific to Israel. Do you remember how after September 11th, first responders went through the crime scenes like the Twin Towers or where Flight 93 went down in Pennsylvania, the Pentagon? They were looking for survivors. And then later on, the crime scene investigators combed through so that parts of bodies could be recovered and identified. This is similar to what happened in Israel after the massacre on October 7th. There were beheadings, people were blown up by grenades, people were set on fire, and so on. These volunteers from Zaka, like who came last night to speak in Teaneck, these volunteers from Zaka and Israel did the holy work of visiting crime scenes, finding and picking up every body part, wiping off every splash of blood on the floors, walls, furniture, and collecting these pieces of someone's life with the utmost dignity and respect. These volunteers wanted these people who were murdered to be collected as intactly as possible and returned to their families for a proper burial. Again, these same volunteers, stoic, brave human beings, and this is what they do on a volunteer basis. They're not paid for this. They came to the United States to speak last night about their work. And what was the response? Warmongers from outside of town were bussed in. They were fed dinner. And unfortunately, I've heard some reports they were paid an appearance fee to motivate them to come from out of town to Teaneck last night. Why was any of that necessary? It created so much drama, particularly for law enforcement and for the individuals who just wanted to come and hear from Zaka directly about the work they do for dead civilians. There's no logic to why people were bussed in to create havoc in an otherwise peaceful suburb to hear people who collect bodies. It doesn't make sense. Pick your battles. Protest something that's actually offensive or meaningful in some way to your cause. Yes, many Muslims in this town hate what's going on in Gaza, and many Jews in this town hate what's going on in Israel. But last night's protest and these other protests are not coming across as about Israel or Gaza. What shows through the most prominently are the radical strangers from out of town who are just looking for an excuse to show aggression towards Jews. At the end of the day, we're here together, Muslims, Jews, Christians, atheists. It doesn't matter. We're here together. We live together and we send our kids to the same programs together. We don't have to have problems together. We can have differences of opinions, but bussing in people from out of town who just want to incite violence and hate, this is wrong and it needs to stop.
Thank you, Miss. Someone on this side? Sir.
Good evening. My name is Frank Breslau. I've lived in Teaneck for 48 years. My thanks to Mayor Pagan, the township manager, Mr. Kaczynski, the police and their chief, and the various other officials who have kept the Jewish community safe despite some people making groundless accusations against us. Special thanks to the township manager, Mr. Kaczynski, for all of his work on our behalf for the last 40+ years in various capacities. In the words of the late Senator Lieberman, you are a real mensch. I'm very disheartened at the continuing invasion of non-Teaneck residents who are demonstrating in a very anti-Semitic manner against the town Jewish population in front of our synagogues. The town council should adopt a resolution barring any demonstrations within several hundred feet of any house of worship. What I find even more astounding is the free rein being given these demonstrators. Why are they allowed to have parades and demonstrations without permits when permits are required by township ordinances? The Jewish contingent in front of B'nai Yeshurun on Monday night had a permit. Where was the Palestinian demonstration permit? Furthermore, several years ago, I got a $54 jaywalking ticket on Cedar Lane for crossing in the middle of the street on a Tuesday morning at 7:30 a.m. when there were no moving vehicles in sight. The Palestinians jaywalked across River Road while there was traffic on Monday night without a single summons being written. One has to wonder if all of the township regulations currently on the book were enforced, I don't think we'd need the overwhelming police presence evidenced on Monday night. Things would be a lot quieter and safer. What also continues to amaze me is the Teaneck Islamic clergy is curiously silent about all of these marches and demonstrations. I would have thought they would say anti-Semitism is not part of Islamic doctrine. Hostage taking of the elderly, women, and children is not part of Islamic doctrine. Raping and wanton killing of Jews is not part of Islamic doctrine. Instead, nothing but silence. This serves as encouragement for the kind of needless demonstrations against a meeting on Monday night to recognize those courageous individuals who gathered the remains of the October 7th massacre victims and, where possibly, identified the victims whose remains were unrecognizable. The council must send an unmistakable message that any religious harassment in this town will not be tolerated and enforce all applicable township ordinances.
Thank you, Mr. Barcelo. Someone on Zoom, Doug?
Brian Brooks, please unmute. State your name for the record.
Hello, my name is Brian Harlan Brooks. I am a Teaneck resident. For over 30 years, I went to Teaneck High School. As I said last time, there is much use of Black history being used to justify varying perspectives, but many don't seem to fully understand that the United States became the melting pot that many of you seem to believe we live in through violent protest often, unfortunately. Law has never been an example of morality, righteousness, or justice for Black Americans. Slavery was legal. Redlining was legal. Segregation was legal. The Casual Killing Act allowed white people to kill us with impunity. The only way that any of that changed was through consistent illegal and often violent protests. Those protests were to hold the USA accountable for denying its Black citizens the right laid out in the amended Constitution to resist a tyrannical nation, a fascist nation, and a theocracy. We do not live in a theocracy. When I first was moved to Teaneck with my parents, I moved here and I enjoyed wonderful relationships with my Jewish community members. I went to the JCC, I learned everything about the Jewish community, and we had robust conversations and discussions about Black Americans, about Black history, about Palestine, and Israel. Those conversations are absent in this moment because many of the citizens having these conversations failed to have solidarity with their Black citizenry in Teaneck, New Jersey. We are having a town council meeting and we're taking 3 minutes to tell you things, but we are not talking to one another. When Philip Pinnell was shot, we had a town council meetings where we talked to each other, and Black people explained our point of view, and white people understood, and there were white allies and advocates, and it was the melting pot that we worked to create. We cannot simply give speeches and yell from our outrage. We have to create an environment of understanding and solidarity between members of the community, even if we disagree vehemently about international politics. I will only say this to my Jewish brothers and sisters that live here in Teaneck, New Jersey. We in the United States do not live in a theocracy. So it is hard for many people to understand, although I understand what you're saying about your indigenous nature to Israel. Many people in the United States have a hard time understanding the theocratic understanding of Israel. We have to have conversations where education is afforded and where people are able to say what is real and what isn't. But to say that you're going to silence protests and force people to stop speaking because it makes you uncomfortable, discomfort is not a threat. Discomfort is just discomfort. I just want to leave everybody with that. We need to be talking to each other and having deeper conversations so that we can come to some form of solidarity and understanding in Teaneck. Because as a person said last week, we are not going to solve the Middle East in Teaneck, but both sides are bringing outside people in to support their point of views. That is not helpful to us. But those outside people are here to support ideas that we all hold, and we justify their outside presence when we need them. I wonder if my Jewish brothers and sisters would feel that it was outside agitators if the town council of the United States and Israel was protesting against them.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Ms. Wilson?
Good evening. I'm here to open up some eyes, hopefully. The coalition call for respectful behavior. We, the coalition of the North Neighborhood Association, are kindly aware of how recent international events in Israel and Gaza have affected our community. Teaneck is unique and it's in diversity, and many residents have family and friends who have been directly affected by the recent tragic event. Emotions are running high, Demonstrations have taken place in town, and some residents have expressed fear for their safety and the safety of their families. Many residents bemoan have divided our town has become. Some are also grieving and worried for the safety of loved ones abroad. It has become clear to those of us attending council meetings that council members are also divided. The tension and divisions on the council have become increasingly apparent. We believe it has been adversely affected the ability of the council to function. We understand that several of you have been received serious threats that cannot be tolerated. We also believe that the division and open hostility visual among council members only enables and perpetrates the divisions among residents. The majority of residents want unity and peace. All residents want their families to feel safe. We need our council to model cooperation, even if there are differences among you, and to lead our town down the path of healing and peace. We implore you to lead our example, lead by example, and not mirror divisions that have arisen. We ask that you, Mayor Pagan, do whatever it is necessary to lead the council and thereby the community in insisting on civility and respect among council members and to the public who elected you. Remember that you are council members representing the entire town of Teaneck. The work of the town needs to be done. The tension and animosity that the public is seeing amongst you is not acceptable. Please do what is needed to lower the temperature and get back to the work of respectably leading this incredible, unique, and diverse community. And I also like to say that I didn't get a chance last week, it was so long, but I'd like to congratulate you, Mr. Condensi. You've been not only a good manager, a good friend, and a caring person, and I hope that you are able to take the time to be with your mom. I am also a caregiver, and I know what you're going through. Take the time, and may God bless and continue you and your family.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Someone on Zoom, Doug.
Brian Ladenheim. Brian Ladenheim, please unmute, state your name for the record. Brian Ladenheim. Brian Ladenheim, please unmute. Your hand is up. State your name for the record. Karen Futter. Karen Futter, please unmute. State your name for the record. Karen Futter, please unmute. State your name for the record. Karen Futter, please unmute. State your name for the record. We're going to try Valerie Levin next.
Doug, if Valerie doesn't come on, I'm going to go with someone in the chambers.
Valerie's coming. Valerie Levin, please unmute. State your name for the record.
I unmuted. I'm trying to get my camera going. I want to follow the rules. Hi, can everybody hear me?
Loud and clear, 3 minutes.
Okay, awesome. A memory came up on my Facebook memories from 2015, back when the Board of Education was going to remove busing for non-public school students. And that was the biggest problem going on in my life back then. And I thought, when I saw that memory, I was like, wow, I wish I had that problem. I wish that was my biggest problem right now. After attending Monday night's counter protest, I am nervous that like a year from now or a few months from now or even a few days from now, I'll be wishing that what happened last night, you know, was my biggest problem. I am nervous about the tone of everything going on. I want the car rallies to stop. I want these crazy protests to stop. I wish there was a way forward. I'm looking out into the internet. I assume someone on the pro-Palestinian Muslim side is feeling as tired as I am right now. we need to figure out a way forward. So I want to thank Cheryl Hall for speaking out Monday night. Cheryl, I'm hoping you're somewhere on Zoom listening to that. And thanking the police for all of that. On to town business. 566 Teaneck Road is a property that has been trying to get itself sold for years, possibly decades now. It is unsellable. Okay, it was under contract for almost a year before it got withdrawn from the market again. I wish there was a way to remove the historic status of that house and we could knock it down and build condos for middle income people, because when a 4-bedroom, 1.5 bathroom house in Teaneck is costing north of $600,000, we are not making housing fair enough for everybody. And my last comment is I wish there was a way to get Herrick Avenue between Mildred and Albin properly milled and paved. You keep patching the potholes. It's not working. I want it properly ground down and I want it properly repaved. Herrick Avenue between Mildred and Albin. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Levin. Mr. Leon.
Hi. Mr. Clerk, please let the record represent that I am wearing a chicken suit. I didn't want to come here tonight. I stayed up till 1:30 last time watching on Zoom to see what all you would say to everyone here who came and who spoke on Zoom, and everything was repeated and everything is tired and I'm tired and you're tired. We're all tired. So let me just do the local stuff first. Chickens, do it. I'll embarrass myself for you. I don't care. Do it. I support safe streets. The complete streets thing, that sounds awesome. We should totally go forward with that. But since I don't take myself seriously, I want to say something serious to you. I was struck by what Deputy Mayor G said a couple minutes ago about how we need to create the conditions that people stop showing up to complain about everything. And I think that that's on you guys, right? Like everything that you do affects one of us somehow. And we're going to come here and we're going to complain about it, whether that's limiting my property right to have some chickens in my backyard, whether it's limiting my neighbor's property right to build a duplex, whether it's making some sort of outward display that causes some sort of political ire, regulating some kind of new business. All of these things that you do are inviting this. And we're inviting it to various degrees, right? We're inviting the entire world's attention right now. There's an Al Jazeera reporter recording me saying this. Why is Al Jazeera reporting on a Teaneck municipal meeting, right? Al Jazeera is an international news agency, and they're standing here in Teaneck looking at a guy in a chicken suit talking to a bunch of local politicians. Stop regulating us. Stop regulating me. Stop making statements. Council speech should be limited to the things that are germane to running this town and this town only. We've made lots of mistakes with that in the past. From today forward, no more resolutions. Ordinances only, or I don't know, maybe I can be corrected on the legalities of that. I don't really know how one works or the other one does. Don't say anything except thank the guy who helps kids cross the streets, and thank the police officers, and thank the firemen when they're retiring, and, you know, make a street name for a local notable. That's great. Do that. That's town stuff. Don't talk about national politics. Don't talk about local politics. Don't spend money on all kinds of things that we don't need, right? Just do, I've said it before, say it again, do the things for us that we elect you to do. Pave our streets. Talk about our recycling. Talk about whether or not our streets are safe enough for pedestrians. I'm a pedestrian. I like walking around in Teaneck. One day a week, I can only walk around in Teaneck. I would like to not get hit by a car on that day. I'll put in for a stop sign at the corner of Grayson and Prince again, even though I know that that's not allowed. Just please, I come here as ridiculously humble as possible to say stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you.
Chris Noel. Chris Noel, please unmute, state your name for the record.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Yes, my name is Chris Noel, Nowell.
I'm a Fort Lee resident, but I really want to applaud your consideration of adopting a complete street policy for Teaneck. It's going to improve the quality of life for all people who live in Teaneck, who visit Teaneck and pass through Teaneck. And I also really want to encourage you to sign the letter of support for the countywide complete streets policy. That would not only help the people of Teaneck, but really everyone, in Bergen County or visiting or passing through Bergen County. So I'm really excited to see that on the agenda, and I support you on, passing those things. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's patronizing to say I'm proud of you, but I really do feel proud that Teaneck, could be tonight the first town to pass a resolution in support of the countywide complete streets policy. I mentioned that this was on the agenda in the Leonia meeting last night, and the Leonia mayor said we're going to put it on our agenda for our next town council meeting. So you are really at the vanguard here, and yeah, I mean that's it really. I just look forward to collaborating in the future. Yeah, that's it. So thank you very much and have a great night.
Thank you, Chris. Sir.
Well, Yusuf Awadullah, Teaneck resident. History is not kind to those who chose the path of complacency. It remembers the brave souls who stood up against injustice, who fought tirelessly for a better world, and it condemns those who in their ignorance chose the easy road of conformity. The actions of this council will be remembered in history. Will this council retract the resolution that was passed on October 17th? The resolution that supports a genocide against the Palestinians. The ICJ has stated that what is going on in Palestine is a plausible genocide. UN expert Francesca Albanese, in her latest report titled Anatomy of a Genocide, has found reasonable grounds that a genocide is being committed against the Palestinian people. Will this council eat their words and apologize for introducing such a divisive resolution? We are no longer asking, this is our council, not yours. You are here to serve us, not yourselves. We demand that you take back the divisiveness of yesterday to restore the peace of tomorrow. This council needs to worry less about redefining words in order to fit a narrative and focus on truly defining what it means to have humanity. Let me be clear, the Municipal Government Council does not have the privilege of defining what the term genocide means to them. This is the same council that has prioritized the lives of puppies over the lives of Palestinians. This is the council who has made it clear that not all Teaneck residents are equal. This is the council who thinks that the First Amendment only applies to those who they deem worthy. Referring back to one of the speakers at the last council meeting who stated that she was told not to go to the Teaneck Public Library because, quote, Muslims were demonstrating there. It's these types of ignorant statements that have been normalized in Teaneck. The Muslim demonstration at the public library was actually a Muslim heritage event where books were read aloud to kids and all were welcomed. The Muslim community, my community, will always welcome others. I know it's hard to believe that a group of Muslims could get together for something other than a demonstration. This is the fear-mongering that was set in motion by a single councilwoman with the backing of the rest of this council. This is Teaneck, where a community center for the people can get demonized over and over again and go unchallenged. This is Teaneck, where a councilwoman can lie on our names with no repercussions. This is Teaneck, where a councilwoman can manufacture lies but still play the victim. This is Teaneck, where a car rally creates more public outcry than a genocide. This is Teaneck, where the town council is allowed to put the interests of foreign nations ahead of its own citizens. This is not the Teaneck I moved to 12 years ago. This is not the Teaneck I chose to raise my family in. We can do better. We must do better. It starts with our elected officials stopping the spread of ignorance and hatred amongst the people that they were elected to serve. Thank you.
Someone on Zoom, Doug.
Lisa Hassan, please unmute, state your name for the record. Feel free to show your camera.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Hassan. I will not show my camera on because Mr. Schwartz, shame on him for wanting to investigate people online. You have our name. You can't force us to put our camera on. I'm not hiding. You have my full name. And I could meet you in person. I've been asking to meet you and to have a conversation with you. Instead, you choose to attack people and with your propaganda newspaper. Anyway, I digress. I would like to thank G and Belcher, the only council members on that council that are actually working for all members of the community. All, not just the Jewish members. Every single person feels safe by the words that G and Belcher say, because they are doing their job as council members serving the community. Now, as for yesterday's event and all the events prior to yesterday, they were caused only for the incitement of that resolution that was passed on October 17th, which we now state that by the ICJ declares the genocide is happening by Zaka false accusations. So that's why that was there, not because we were going to protest a synagogue or anything else. We are there to protest the genocide. We don't want to keep coming out, but we come out peacefully. And for you guys to keep using your power to fearmonger, that's shameful. Shame on the mayor for allowing this to continue. We call on those council members to resign. Stop using your power to fearmonger. Yesterday at the rally, the ones that were bussed in were the pro-genocide people. The pro-genocide people were the ones inciting the violence. They grabbed a few children, separating them from their parents as they were passing, being escorted by the police. I would like to thank the police. I have family members that are police officers, and the Teaneck Police Department and all the outside help that they were getting is shamefully behaving in an undignified way for that badge. They were facing the pro-Palestine, pro-humanity civilians when they should have been facing both sides. We are not the agitators. We are not crime victims. We are not anti-Semitic. We had Jewish, Christian, all different walks of life on our rallies. We are not there to incite violence. We are quite the opposite. We are calling for humanity. Humanity. End this genocide that's been 6 months. What hostage situation is solved by carpet bombing a highly densely populated area? Shame on you, Oregon, Goldberg, and Schwartz. You need to stop the insanity. Stop
If you
dividing
can,
our
Ms.
town.
Hassan, please
Stop dividing our town.
address
Resign
the council
today.
as an entity or through me. Thank you, ma'am.
Through you,
And
you
let's see,
cannot
which side? Thank you, Ms.
pressing.
Hassan, for your comments every meeting. Let's see, I think I was on this side. Sir, right there, yeah.
Thank you. My name is Dove Adler. I'm a lifelong Teaneck member. I have no prepared remarks. I actually was not planning on coming and speaking. But my father was the founding rabbi of Congregation Rinat Yisrael, and he taught me very, very well that when you see something, you have an opportunity, you got to take advantage of it. I come tonight, the clock's not ticking because I can't see it. I come tonight from a work event in New York City that was really celebrating and honoring kids with cancer. And it was people from all walks of life coming together. And I got an interesting question. Someone said to me, Dove, you live in Teaneck? I said, yeah. They said, what is going on? I saw what happened on the news last night. Do you feel safe? What is going on? What was the cause of that rally? This person was not Jewish, had no political sides to take, had really no understanding. And I explained to them what Zaka was, that so many people here have already explained. And I explained to them what the rally was, that there were pro-Palestinians who mostly do not live in Teaneck, New Jersey, that were coming to protest at that event. And they could not understand. And they said to me simply, how does your township allow this? How does the police department put you at risk? They said, I was watching the videos. And yes, you might have felt quote unquote safe, but it was intimidating. There was intimidation from the pro-Palestinians asking us and demanding and cursing and using words and language that none of us would want to hear our children ever hear. And they said to me, how does your township allow that to go forward? And I said, I have no idea. I really don't understand. We talk to them, we come to meetings, we try and get them to understand and explain the risk as to what we're going through. And it's easy to explain that people here are just being bussed in from other townships, coming from other places that don't live in Teaneck to protest anything that has to do with Israel, quote unquote, genocide, that has nothing to do with the day-to-day lives. And you know what they said to me? They said, do they think that someone in Israel is watching this protest of them acting how they are, trying to intimidate you, and they're going to say the war's over, no more war? That's not going to happen. This is what they're saying. Someone that has no relationship to Teaneck, no context within a political side to take. And I just implore you that if you don't act immediately and you really don't try and curb these rallies that are going on that are not safe, Teaneck is continuing to get a bad name, a very, very bad name in the entire metropolitan area and within the globe. From that perspective, people are commenting on it, saying it's not safe. How do you live here? Is this someplace I could raise children? It used to be, from what I heard of, a very nice town that people get along. And this is what people are thinking about right now. So I urge you to really take action and to think about the law and putting things into place to prevent this from happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adler. Someone on Zoom, Doug?
Lana, please unmute, state your name for the record. Lana, please unmute, state your name for the record. Your hand is up.
Hello, can you hear me?
Loud and clear, Lana. Please state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Lana Hanks. I'm a Teaneck resident. First, I want to urge you to stop using the victim card. It needs to end. This is not about religion, so stop making it about religion. This is about standing up against a genocide. You want the protests to stop at Teaneck and near religious organizations? Stop supporting a terrorist organization like Israel. For example, holding an event on how to purchase illegal stolen land in Keter Torah congregation makes the town and the congregation a target for protests. Don't be surprised when protesters start showing they're not coming out of nowhere. Or like inviting Zaka to speak at a synagogue and portraying them as angelic heroes when, according to Times of Israel, they made up fake horror stories on October 7th to raise funds. I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound like angelic heroes to me. Stop twisting everything to suit your narrative. As for bringing in people from outside, Congregation Beni Yeshurun yesterday bussed in people from New York Lincoln Square Synagogue for that Zaka event. Your hypocrisy is showing. You want us to stop doing stuff, you stop doing stuff on your end. And let me make it clear, as many people before me have, okay? We are against genocide. We are against the bombing of hospitals. We're against the stealing of land. We're against the killing of 40,000 innocent civilians. We're against Zionism. We're against that ideology. If you support all of what I have listed above, do it, but stop hiding behind religion to support it. Stop using religion to support all of the above. Just say that you support the killing of people and move on. But using religion is not going to help you. Hiding behind synagogues is not going to help you. As you guys have seen, we have Jews protesting for pro-Palestine. We have Jews on our side. We have Christians on our side. We have atheists on our side. We have people on our side because we are standing up for humanity. Okay? And as for the potholes, please fix the potholes. Please, I'm begging you to fix the potholes because that will make our next car rally go more and more smoothly. Thank you so much.
Carol Green?
Good evening. My name is Darrell Green, Teaneck resident since 1976. Teaneck, I'm very concerned. We've really come to a place now that is very troubling. This is not the Teaneck that I grew up in. Last Wednesday, we had some architects do a presentation. I'm about trying to rebuild Teaneck, not tear it down. Architects from the Smith Group did a presentation to Teaneck stakeholders. I want to thank Rabbi Friedman. I want to thank our school superintendent. I want to thank our town manager. I want to thank the Northeast Teaneck Block Association. I want to thank Mazia Usamani of the Dar es Salaam Mosque on Route 80, who sent his representative. We had 20, maybe 25 stakeholders on a Zoom call to talk about building a unified structure here in Teaneck, not on the municipal green, but a unified structure that everyone can get involved with. No one person should stand superior over another. This is something that we feel the whole town should be involved with. For those who do not know, the Smith Group are the architects who built the African American Museum in Washington, D.C. They are interested in coming to Teaneck and doing something here in Teaneck to help unify our community. We've had so much negative press. People are afraid. People are wondering, hey, what will Teaneck be like for my kids? What it's difficult to get people to want to invest in Teaneck right now. I want to see how we can try to rebuild our community and come up with something that we can work on together. The Smith Group is willing to come here to Teaneck at the appropriate time and do a presentation to council. These gentlemen have designed buildings that surpass value of $45 billion. So I think that they can come up with something that can fit the needs and be something that we can all be proud of. On another note, I'd like to talk about a possible street naming for someone that is near and dear to my heart. When I was in Teaneck High School, he was the vice principal of Teaneck High School. His name was Robert Elmo Wright. We all called him Mr. Wright. He was probably best known for his detentions, but Mr. Wright made sure that his kids walked across that graduation line. I'd like to see if we can do a street naming for Mr. Wright, possibly sometime in the spring. His family is still around. Mr. Wright is deceased, but he was loved by thousands. Thousands loved Mr. Wright. I know Elizabeth Place has the Black Lives Matter
Thank you,
sign,
Mr.
but
Green.
if we could do it on Cranford.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Someone on Zoom, Doug?
Shayna Brander. Shayna Brander coming in, please unmute, state your name for the record. Feel free to show your camera.
Hi, do you hear me?
Loud and clear, Shayna, you have 3 minutes.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Shayna Brander, and I'm a Teaneck resident, I guess a relatively new one of 3 years. 2 months ago, I raised a concern regarding the traffic and congestion on Country Club Drive. I was very pleased to hear it mentioned again on last month's council meeting on the list of ongoing infrastructure-related items. I really appreciate that the concern I raised is being considered. I want to thank each member of this council, the mayor, and the town manager for staying focused on tangible issues directly affecting members of our town, and for all your efforts prioritizing the traffic and safety here. I know this is not an easy problem to solve for, but with continued attention, we will continue to make progress. I look forward to seeing all the improvement on the traffic safety in our town. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Siegel.
Hi, my name is Rich Siegel. Warmongers being bussed in and paid an appearance fee. Wow. I really thought I'd heard it all. That's a new one. That ranks with one of our council members saying that people at the demonstrations are shouting "Death to Jews." Nobody shouted that. Nobody ever will. A lot of the people at the demonstrations are Jewish, including me. But what I wanted to do here today, and whatever time I have, and the clock is not on. Could you please turn it on? Oh, very nice. Okay. So we have the Jewish Link and the Jewish Standard, which are both published here. Look at this. Hate March through Teaneck. And Teaneck law enforcement wrangles pro-Palestinian mob. That's hate language. That's not journalism. Okay? There's more. Here's the Jewish Standard. There's a photo of a poster that has the phrase "rape is resistance" on a Palestinian flag. And it says, "Free Palestine by any means necessary." So some Zionists made up this fake flyer
to demonize the Palestinians, to try to pretend that Palestinians are endorsing rape. That's evil. And the fact that this newspaper would publish it as if it's legitimate is evil. Now let's go to, oh, how much time do I have? Very quickly. There's a poem or a song lyric in the contemporary, the current issue of the Jewish Link called Lyric of the Week, Ours Forever. And it has in it this little nursery rhyme that I've seen lots of kids do at the Salute to Israel parade when I've demonstrated against it. It goes like this: 2, 4, 6, 8. Israel is the Jewish state. 3, 5, 7, 9. There's no such thing as Palestine. Okay? That's advocating the erasure of Palestine. That's why we organize these demonstrations, because you all are trying to erase Palestine, and we object to that. Here's more. One land between the sea and river, Israel, Israel, ours forever, ours forever. That means for Jews forever. That means not for Muslims and Christians, okay? And you object to when we say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, but that means free for Muslims, Christians, and Jews.
Thank you, Mr. Siegel.
Palestine.
Thank you, Mr. Siegel.
Isaac
Your time is up,
Hollander.
sir.
Isaac Hollander, please
Yes,
unmute, state your
hi.
name for the record.
Can you see me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, I did. Okay, I've got video going too. Good. Okay, Isaac Hollander, 18-year Teaneck resident. Let me start with the mundane. I'm still waiting for an update on the large pothole at West Laurelton and Forest. It is so wide that you can't avoid driving over it and bouncing around. As I said last time, eventually someone will lose a tire or break an axle. Hopefully a crew will come and fix it once the weather improves. Now to the less mundane, and it's difficult following Mr. Siegel, but I'll do my best. I want to thank the Teaneck Police Department, the Bergen County Sheriff, as well as the law enforcement personnel from other jurisdictions who did a great job last night in front of Congregation B'nai Shurin. It is unfathomable to me that anyone would be so triggered by an event in support of first responders, heroes who literally clean up body parts after the most horrific bombings one can imagine, who have dispatched to many other countries to perform their holy work, who worked tirelessly for weeks in the aftermath of the October 7th Hamas attack. It is clear that the motivation of the outsiders who came in to protest the Zaka event last night, who maliciously slowed traffic on Route 4 on Sunday, and who have harassed us every week for several months now, has nothing to do with the war in the Middle East. I'll say the quiet part out loud. They are motivated by Jew hatred. To avoid some confusion expressed 2 weeks ago, I won't even use the word anti-Semitism. It is Jew hatred. For some people, hate is bad unless it's hate of Jews. It is very telling that American flags were flown only on one side, while the other side flew flags of organization identified by the US government as terrorist groups. One side cursed and ranted and spit. The other side sang and danced and prayed. One side had a permit, the other did not. We've been dealing with this garbage for long enough. Last night, the Jewish community said, enough, no more. After 6 months of frankly minimal response, the community decided to respond in a classy, nonviolent way. No one is going to prevent Jews from engaging in day-to-day activities. No one will restrict Jews from exercising their First Amendment rights of freedom of speech, assembly, and religion. No one will drive Jews out of Teaneck like Jews were driven out of practically every country in the world at some point over the last 2 millennia. The presence and support of our non-Jewish friends and neighbors last night really meant a lot. I appreciate that the six out of 7 council members who spoke out at the last meeting against the rising tide of hatred, and I look forward to even more support going forward. In the mid-60s, Teaneck was an inspirational model to the rest of the country, the first municipality in America to integrate schools. What has happened to us? Let us pledge to work together to bring amity and civility back to our town. I want to end by expressing my support for the efforts Councilman Schwartz introduced tonight to fix good and welfare. Town residents must receive preference, and we should be discussing the mundane issues of living here, like potholes, traffic, and sewers. Thank you.
Thank you, Isaac. Ms. Khan.
Good evening. Ramadan greetings to all of you. Wow, the level of hypocrisy tonight is just unbelievable. Not only is free speech being suppressed, but the standards are different. Teaneck Council, what kind of double standards are we peddling here? It is really unfortunate that free speech works when certain people can speak and certain people cannot. Guess what happened in Israel today? The Knesset passed a law banning Al Jazeera. Free press is a cornerstone of democracy. So is good and welfare, cornerstone of Teaneck's democracy here. And we are trying to limit that. I watched painfully 3 hours of footage of the March 10th protest because I was not there. I watched the protest from last night, an entire video recording. I did not see any kind of lack of civility from any of the protesters. In fact, I saw certain council people who are sitting up on the dais who were actually making vulgar reactions to the protesters. I also saw an ex-council person. Woe be on him. He's an ex-council person and he's standing there filming everyone. This is the level of double standards we have. And to everyone who mentioned that the pro-Palestinians are Muslims, I'm sorry to say, I noticed that the protest was a sea of black, white, brown people, including Jewish people standing there. So please don't keep using the same hatred that you are accusing the opposition. Every accusation is a confession. So, Teaneck Council, if you want to reverse your stand from October 17th, there's an idea. You can do that. Call for a permanent ceasefire, call for the return of hostages, of all the prisoners, and call for the illegal occupation of Israel to end. Because guess what? Today is Ramadan. I will be going to the mosque from here to pray peacefully. But for 75 years, Palestinians have not been able to pray peacefully in Masjid al-Aqsa because every year there are incidents where the IOF kicks them and harasses them while they are in prayer. That was me speaking, Reshma Khan, as an individual resident. Now I will speak tonight on behalf of the Coalition of Teaneck Neighborhood Associations. This is a coalition that represents several rapidly growing neighborhood associations from across town. We are concerned with the timing, legitimacy, and official assertions made by the town public meeting on March 27th, chaired by Councilman Schwartz. We are very concerned that you're again trying to suppress Teaneck resident voices. You're doing the same thing that you did. There's a huge building towering in front of Ms. Baker's home and completely having abolished the neighborhood feel of her surroundings. It's also not lost on us that you use junior planning firm staff to deal with the residents. I will send you the entire statement. I had to come here to make sure that you all know that all agitators who speak on the pro-Palestinian side are being attacked and vilified. Rich, you're next. So
Thank you, Ms. Khan.
please keep that in mind.
Thank you, Ms. Khan. Someone on Zoom, Doug?
Sharuk Awadallah. Please state your name for the record. Unmute.
Good evening, Shuruk Awadallah. Speak the truth even if your voice shakes. I called in today to shed light on and dispel the misinformation surrounding yesterday's demonstration. It is imperative that we address the inaccuracies that have circulated. The demonstrators were not present to intimidate worshipers or disrespect any place of worship. Let me clarify that the organization welcomed at the synagogue is an extremist group. Our Jewish neighbors extended a welcome to what they believe to be heroes of Zaka, yet the truth reveals a different narrative. The actions of these individuals who misrepresented their findings on October 7th are despicable. We cannot turn a blind eye to this manipulation of facts. The Zaka organization claimed to have witnessed horrifying scenes, including 40 beheaded babies and children tied up and burned. Such fabrications only to serve to fuel the flames of the genocide that continues to ravage our world. It is our obligation to delve deeper into the issues at hand. I urge everyone present tonight to conduct thorough research. Don't take it from me, conduct your own research. These demonstrations are not spontaneous acts. Rather, they are a direct response to the one-sided resolutions passed. We implore the Council to reconsider these resolutions concerning the Israel-Palestine conflict. Instead of acknowledging the heartfelt pleas of our constituents, one council member chose to trivialize the gravity of the situation by posting on social media the definition of genocide. Let me state unequivocally, the war on Gaza meets the criteria for genocide, as recognized by the United Nations and any rational individual. We must demonstrate empathy and understanding towards those suffering, rather than engaging in political posturing. I implore the council to listen to the voices of reason and compassion calling for a reassessment of our stance on this critical issue. Now, moving on to another topic, if we can please have a little more information about selling the township's cell phone towers. What implications would this have on the residents? Thank you for the opportunity to be heard.
Thank you. Mr. Song.
Alan Sohn, Teaneck resident, lifelong proud Zionist. By Jewish tradition, one of the greatest mitzvahs that one can perform is attending a funeral. When you pay respects to the dead, there is no possible quid pro quo. After tragedies, we often hear that we have to pick up the pieces. On October 7th, while rockets and bullets were still flying, Zaka took action to perform this mitzvah in the middle of a war zone. I was at B'nai Yeshurun last night, and I heard how Zaka literally picked up pieces of people where there were only fragments left. The Israeli military response didn't happen because of Zaka. It happened because Israel was invaded by Hamas and more than 1,000 people were murdered, raped, or kidnapped. I don't believe that October 7th atrocities occurred because of testimony from Zaka. I believe it because Hamas terrorists wore GoPro cameras on their heads to record the atrocities live, to take over the phones of their victims and post their videos of people having their heads blown off, of tossing grenades into bomb shelters, ripping people into shreds. Zaka volunteers were there literally to pick up those pieces on October 7th, just as they have responded to tragedies here in the United States and throughout the world. Within our lifetime, one of the organizations behind last night's protest has been outspoken in its support of Hamas and did so publicly on October 7th. Days later, within our lifetime, organized protests, quote, to defend the heroic Palestinian resistance. On its website, within our lifetime, called the Hamas attacks, quote, an inspiration to the world. Saddam Massoud, a founder of Within Our Lifetime, attacked Matt Greenman, a Jew wearing an Israeli flag, part of a group repeatedly kicking him in the face on the ground. Arrested, he asked officers, all this for one Jew? This incident happened 2 years ago. This is an organization dedicated to outright anti-Semitism. This is the organization that protested last night outside a synagogue against the holy work of Zaka to recover the bodies of those murdered by Hamas. Imagine being at the pit at the World Trade Center, placing your life at risk to recover fragments of victims of 9/11. Now imagine a crowd of protesters taking the side of Al-Qaeda and attacking those volunteers working to provide closure to families. That's exactly what happened last night. I am sickened to hear that ABCR Chair Cheryl Hall is being attacked for her efforts to bridge our differences and being accused of standing on the wrong side of history. All 7 of you passed a resolution condemning Hamas. All 7 of you passed a resolution asking for peace and unity on October 30th. What does it take to condemn anti-Semitism?
Thank you, Mr. Song. Someone on Zoom, Doug?
Hildy Dillon, please unmute, state your name for the record. Feel free to show your camera. Hildy Dillon.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Hildy Dillon, and I've been a Teaneck resident for 38 years. A lot of tough acts to follow tonight. I want to completely change the subject and give this community an opportunity to work together to clean up Teaneck. Our next town cleanup that will be sponsored by our Department of Public Works and your Environmental Commission here in Teaneck takes place on April 14th. That's a Sunday from 12 to 2 p.m. And we'd love for you to join us at the Rada Center at about 11:45. Transportation to and from the cleanup sites will be provided, and there will be refreshments when we come back to the Rada Center following the cleanup. It's an opportunity for us to work together to keep our town beautiful and also to do something productive together as a community. I also attended the American Legion Drive redevelopment meeting on March 27th. I have to say, I'm not speaking on behalf of the Environmental Commission because we haven't had a chance to speak about this at our meetings. I'm speaking on behalf of myself right now. But the amount of open space provided in that enormous plan was almost funny. These open spaces were along major corridors like Garrison Avenue. And they're not safe, B, they are not enough. If you're gonna build a complex of this size, there should be an open space area where people can congregate, where there's some recreation available for them. We all know that Chestnut Plaza is a nice place. It has, what, 3 benches? It's not enough for a town of 46,000 people. And what was provided in this plan was inadequate. I do agree that if we're going to do something to this area, we need to start from scratch. It's a huge plan. You're passing, I hope, a resolution tonight, 104/2024, the Complete Streets Policy. How does that fit into this plan? How are you going to have complete streets in such a congested redevelopment area with these all of these cars that are over 800 cars in a parking lot? How are they going to get in and out, and how will that be safe? We need to really think about the big picture in our town. I would like everybody here that's upset about what's going on in the world to remember to vote. Our primary in New Jersey is June 4th. If you have not registered to vote, please go to vote411.org and you can register to vote online in New Jersey. And you must do so by May 11th to vote in our June 4th primary election. Exercise your right to vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dillon. Thank you, Ms. Dillon. Ms. Rogovan?
Paula Rogovan, Teaneck resident. The Teaneck Peace and Justice Vigil implores the Teaneck Town Council to pass a resolution calling for an immediate and permanent ceasefire and humanitarian aid to Gaza. While it's important for Israeli hostages and Palestinian political prisoners to be returned, we say the first step is a ceasefire. On October 17th, the Teaneck Township Council passed a resolution supporting the Israeli government. As we all know, Teaneck residents were deeply divided about this resolution. Now, at least 33,000 people in Gaza have been killed, nearly 13,000 of them children, 17,000 children. This is real data. 17,000 children have been orphaned. At least 75,000 people have been injured. Many are buried in the rubble. The majority of people have been displaced from their homes, and the majority of people are near starvation. This is real information. This has been made even worse by the recent killing of 7 World Central Kitchen employees by Israeli forces, acknowledged by the Israeli government. World Central Kitchen has suspended its mission in Gaza, which will bring more starvation. The Teaneck Peace and Justice Vigil, founded by veterans and military families and other residents, will hold its 972nd consecutive Wednesday vigil at the National Guard Armory, corner of Teaneck Road and Liberty Road. Even when it wasn't popular, we protested the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. The tide of public opinion turned, and the vast majority of Americans opposed those wars. At our October 11th vigil this year, when we called for the ceasefire in Gaza, we had an overwhelmingly positive response from passersby, and that support has grown stronger each week. The Teaneck Peace and Justice Vigil implores you to pass a simple resolution calling for an immediate and permanent ceasefire and humanitarian aid to Gaza. Without passing such a resolution, the township will remain complicit in the death of many thousands of civilians.
Thank you, Mr. Govan. Someone on Zoom, Doug?
Bringing in Ellie Katz. What's
Evening.
going on here?
Yes, my name is
Wait,
Ellie.
you're not
White
Ellie.
Cat. Yeah, so my name is Ellie, not White Cats. I'm a 10-year resident of Teaneck. I'd like to comment regarding the Route 4 underpass crossing at Webster Avenue and Alfred Avenue. With the continued development at 329 Alfred Avenue and the very active traffic patterns in Country Club between I-95 and Route 4, the installation of what I think is called a convex corner mirror at the northwest side of the structure to allow cars making a left turn from Alfred Avenue through the underpass would be very, very beneficial. Many drivers currently have to inch forward, and many are nearly hit trying to safely negotiate a left turn. I don't know if this falls under complete streets or a traffic study, but it would certainly improve the safety and traffic patterns of that very dangerous intersection. I'd also like to say thank you for the new stop sign that has been approved at Decatur and Alfred Avenue. But in keeping with my comments on keeping Teaneck streets safe, I humbly ask for all those in power to continue doing what you can to enforce that all laws are just really being followed in really just keeping groups from disrupting just the peace in our town. It's really, really important to, I think, everybody. A very big thank you to Dean for your many years of service to the township, and thank you, Councilman Schwartz, for your introduction on the resolution in fixing good and welfare. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Katz. The gentleman in the back.
So many good-looking Ellie Katzes out there, huh?
How about that, huh?
Good evening. My name is Idonije Arumemi, Teaneck resident. I spoke at the last council meeting, so this time I'm just going to have a series of things for you guys to think about. So I sat here, it's my first time here. I sat here and I've listened attentively to everybody's thoughts. And one thing, when the Teaneck High School students wanted to protest and use their voice, I noticed adults shouting at them, sort of intimidating them, as if they didn't have the right to speak against what they deemed is important. As an educator and a history teacher, I'm assistant principal now, but I'm still a history teacher at heart. We teach our kids to use their voice. So for adults to go around and shout at them, what are you leaving behind? Think about that. Second, we talk about hatred of Jewish people. When I walked in the room, I saw a lot of people just looking at me. I guess, I don't know, I don't know if I'm an intimidating individual, but I just walked in. But if there are people here who you feel hate you, they cannot sit next to you because they hate you. If you hate each other, you cannot be in the same room. We may have disagreements, but that's what it is. It's disagreements. And we have to find a common ground to move forward. When I first moved into Teaneck, and I said this before, so I'm gonna elaborate a little bit more. My daughter went to the park, Voti, on a Sunday. Now I did not know but this may alarm some of you right now. She wanted to play, but unfortunately, the people that were there, I would say the Jewish kids that were there, did not want to play with my daughter. So we left. We haven't been back since. We go to Overpack. So again, think about
Thank you,
that.
sir. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you. Someone on Zoom, Doug.
Deb B, please unmute, state your name for the record.
Hi, good evening. This is Deborah Blayberg with a real English accent. I'm calling tonight for a number of things. I just want to remind people that what happened on March 10th could have actually been avoided if a certain councilwoman would have actually done her homework. Instead, she conspired with a member of the public here, Mr. Siegel, emails back and forth as per the Oprah request, and decided instead of doing her own work, she would instead bring out this huge libel to the Jewish community, which affected not only the Teaneck Jewish community, but Jewish communities around Manhattan, New York, Long Island, all over. And honestly, any police bills that went for March 10th should really be sent to this particular councilwoman. Then we need to discuss a deputy mayor who requested seating for people who couldn't make it on time because of their festival. Let's not forget that graduation this year from Teaneck High School is on chivalrous. So I apologise for my situation. I'm currently on college visits with my kids. So let's not put light to that. It seems to maybe is that a violation of the Open Meetings Act, but I do believe that we actually have a councilwoman that needs to be brought up on ethics because she should have spent 2 weeks researching instead of trying to figure out a way to come at the Jewish community. And as for what happened on Monday, I was not here, but I was fortunately able to see a lot of footage. What I saw was singing American flags, Israeli flags. And then I saw this screaming from the river to the sea and all the other delightful tropes that are said. And again, let's not forget, Within Our Lifetime is financed by Qatar. They are there specifically to be paid actors and busting. And when we talk about busting, yes, there was another shul busting to support us. Did they create violence? No. I saw an article written with truncheons and all kinds of stuff. But again, we know the truth. We know the lies. We know that Al Jazeera lies. We know that Al Jazeera gives fake information. We know that the woman who calls in about IDF soldiers raping people made it all up to create what Unity for the Brotherhood. We also know Al Shifa Hospital was full of terrorists and Hamas, and they weapons. So again, when you sit here and spew your hate, we see you. We see exactly what you're saying. And Rachel Kaplan, you ain't British, do me a favour. Anyway, have a great one, guys. And Leila Brahma is here for Palestine, and she needs to stop and someone needs to deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss. The gentleman
Mayor?
in the back. Yes. Mr.
Yeah,
Wood.
it's been 90 minutes. I'd like to know if the council would like to entertain a motion to stop good and welfare so we can address our consent agendas and resolutions.
How many people want to speak? All right, we have nine in chambers and someone's doing-
I'm
how's
just one of
everybody-
7.
What is everybody thinking though?
I think we should go to 11.
I'm okay with 11. Mr. Schwartz, you okay with that?
That sounds good. It's okay with myself.
True,
Deputy Mayor
but I
G,
just
we're
want to make
good
sure
with 11,
everybody
so
in
it's-
chambers at least gets to speak. The gentleman in the back.
Evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here to renew a request. Oh, I'm sorry, Aaron Cohen, a Teaneck resident. I'm here to renew a request for a crosswalk across Palisades Avenue where Griggs Ave tees into Palisades Ave at the entrance of Herrick Park. I made the request in December and here to renew it again. It's very dangerous and I cross the street with my family all the time trying to get to the park. And if we can do anything, and I'm happy to spearhead it to remove the graffiti from the playground equipment at Herrick Park. I know there's a Green Acres application pending, but some landscaping and just some general removal of graffiti would be much appreciated. Happy to help spearhead that for the council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Doug, I'm going to call, I know some of my friends on Zoom are going to get upset me, but I'm going to call on some people in the chambers. Mr. Vatsky.
Art Vatsky, Teaneck. There's a lot has been said tonight. I love the exchange. I don't call this a good and welfare. I call this a safety valve. We need to have different ideas in front of each other and hear how we sound to other people, how we look to other people. And that's one of the things I want to mention. Doug, will you tell me when I'm down to 2 minutes? Oh, you got it? Okay. So we're a safety valve. People here are scared. We're scared. And we're also not that well educated. We know we're in different silos. Denise knows about silos. And we have selected facts. And if you try and get out of your silo, you find out, oh, I didn't know that fact. I didn't know that way that looked. Now, if I was in that silo, this would look pretty bad.
2 minutes, or 2 minutes.
I've got 2 minutes. Okay. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. This is good and welfare. And what I want to say about it is you missed one option about extending good and welfare. Every other week, you have just a good and welfare session. People can come, the council is here, and we talk ourselves out of whatever. And then you have a regular meeting with good and welfare after that. It's more work for you, but if you want to be a safety valve in this town at this era, you should think about it. Every week, good and welfare. All right, now I'll get to my other subject that I think people are growing tired of, which is the trains, okay? The trains are a problem. I've said they're a problem before, and now I've learned they're a bigger problem than I thought. And we're not ready. We weren't ready for one track. We weren't ready for 2 tracks. We're not ready for 3 tracks. We don't have and we have 3 tracks. We have 3 trains on 3 tracks operating a lot. Okay, Office of Emergency Management said 40 trains a day. I thought they were all on 1 track or maybe 1 or 2. Now they're on 3. Put 3 trains together and have them derail, and you're talking mega attack, mega damage. 3 trains, that's over 300 rail cars. I'd like to speak to the council at the next meeting in a full formal presentation, but it's happening. It will happen. No, I won't say it will happen. It could happen. You cannot say it can't happen. And disaster. Yes.
Thank
I'm out of
you,
time,
Mr.
man.
Vatsky. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Vatsky.
Thank you.
The lady sitting next to Mr. Siegel.
Good evening. My name is Karima Tarazi. I'm a Palestinian Christian from Jerusalem with family in Gaza. I'm US educated. I'm a nurse and licensed to practice in 42 states in the United States. I served in rescue and recovery after 9/11 from the 11th of September until the 27th of July when we closed the landfill. We still are doing DNA studies. I am the recipient of the 2018 Angel of Mercy Award. I am presently a board member of the Palestinian Christian Alliance for Peace. I'm not going to be redundant and repeat the atrocities of the past 6 months, but I will tell you that the director of the Anglican hospital that was hit is my cousin. The 16 people that perished at St. Porphyrius Greek Orthodox Church were my cousins. And the people that were shot by snipers at Holy Cross Roman Catholic Church were also cousins. I came today, thanks to Mr. Siegel, who invited me, to let you know of the illegal sales of Palestinian land in the occupied Palestinian territories. I'm here to testify that these lands and properties not only violate international law, but laws in the United States that we have worked so hard to eliminate. Laws about racism and discrimination. I'll share with you a very small experience. 2009, I went home to Jerusalem. I thought I would settle there with my son. I went to Ma'ali Adumim after making an appointment, went up there, sat down with the gentleman. He looked at my ID. He goes, I can't rent or sell to you. I said, why not? He said to me, you are not a Jew. Those are laws in Israel. Certain people can buy or rent in certain areas. Certain people cannot. We have fought. I have had the pleasure and the honor of knowing Mrs. Coretta King, Miss Dr. Butts of the Abyssinian Church, and the Reverend Jesse Jackson. They put their whole life to make sure that those things did not happen again in the United States. Please do not encourage it to happen in my country, in my land, to my people. Thank you for your time, and thank you for giving me the chance to be able to speak tonight.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
miss. Sir, in the front row.
Hi, thank you for the time. Noam Schneck, Teaneck resident for 7 years. Sometimes it feels like there's just a lot of words that need to be clarified. And I'm hoping to provide some clarification because there seems to be this wonder about why parts of the Jewish community are responding to the protests the way that we're responding. And there's been accusations leveled that we're maybe uncomfortable seeing certain types of people gathering, or maybe it has to do with people's race, religion, or skin color. So I want to talk about specific phrases that I heard at the March 10th rally, and explain that these phrases are extremely disturbing to us. The first phrase is globalize the Intifada. The Intifada was a war against Jews for being Jews. It was a war. I have a friend, Yoni Jesner. He was a friend of mine in 2003, got on a bus. He was killed in the Intifada. Nobody argued about what the Intifada was. That was what the Intifada was. So when people say globalize the Intifada, I have a reaction to that. I have a friend who was killed in the Intifada. When people say there's only one solution, whatever, one solution, the final solution, right? When people say there's only one solution, Intifada revolution, I hear the final solution. Maybe I'm paranoid. I really don't think I am. But thanks for the vote of support, Rich. I don't think I'm paranoid. I think one solution, final solution. It's not a stretch. It's not a stretch. And when people are saying that, that is evoking the Holocaust. I don't think that that's a stretch. When people say from the river to the sea, I have tons of family that live in Israel. From the river to the sea means they won't have anywhere to live. Now, I know that there are those who argue, no, they'll live happily in a glorious Palestinian state, but we don't really see that reality. So okay, everyone says they don't consider themselves a racist. I don't consider myself a racist. I was critically involved in organizing a wonderful Teaneck event in 2018 after the horrible events, the Christchurch massacre. We had a beautiful gathering in the Dar al-Islah mosque. The whole community got together as a model of what Teaneck should be. And perhaps we can get back to that if we can get back to understanding each other's words. So I'm coming here not to be confrontational, not to argue. I'm coming here to explain. These are the words I hear. These are the words we hear, and these are the reactions we have. If you feel we're misunderstanding, misinterpreting, come talk to me. I'm happy to listen. I'm happy to hear. I want to hear what people have to say. There's one final word I've heard is normalization, which is this concept that you can't speak to Zionists that I've heard from. Okay, well, I don't think I can get into that.
Thank you, sir. The lady in the second row, I saw your hand up.
Miriam Herman. I've lived in Teaneck for 24 years. First of all, I want to say thank you to Dean Kaczynski. I'm really going to miss you and your voice. You should really consider a second career as a voiceover artist. You have a fantastic voice. I hope you'll stay a little longer or at least do the recordings for Teaneck. I also want to thank the town council. I know it's hard to be here late at night. I know it was difficult for me in the audience. And so I would encourage thinking of taking Teaneck residents first before non-Teaneck residents. I wasn't planning to speak tonight, but I was late in arriving in part because I hit a pothole and I got a flat tire and I had to wait to have my tire changed. So we definitely need to address the potholes in Teaneck, and we need better lighting. But I do want to thank the town council for the flashing light at Windsor Road. That definitely helps the crossing. And I've lived on both this side of Teaneck and near Votee. So my kids have used so many of the Teaneck services, whether it's been Camp K, Teaneck Board of Ed, the library programs, the programs at the Rada Center. And my kids have really had diverse friends as a result of all of that programming. So I hope we can get back to letting our kids enjoy all that Teaneck has to offer, because we are a diverse community. And we're a great community with so many great services. I know you asked about the budget and getting feedback from the residents. I was very concerned to hear about the cost of all the overtime, because that means Teaneck residents are going to have much higher taxes. We don't deserve that. We pay such high taxes already. So I hope that the police department could be more vigilant in enforcing our laws and issuing tickets, because that'll make just a little drop in the bucket, but it will perhaps at least be a disincentive to violating the traffic laws. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. The gentleman in the back.
Excuse me, she left her phone.
Ellie Clapper, Teaneck resident, 18 years. First, I want to just thank the council. I haven't been to a lot of these meetings, but I've been to a few, and you guys sit here and listen to us, and it's probably a therapy session for a lot of us. So I really appreciate you coming and sitting and listening to us every month. I really want to tell, Dean, round of applause for Dean. Love you. You've been great. So sad to see you go, and the police and fire have really just been amazing in this town, living here for the last 18 years. I really want to just tell you two stories that happened to me in the last 3 weeks. The first one is there was a newer family that moved on right across the street from our house, and really didn't have a chance to meet them or knew who they were, but Ramadan came along and there was a big blow up, Ramadan Mubarak, on their front lawn. And my wife said to me, you know, I really don't know these neighbors, and with everything going on, maybe we should go introduce ourselves. Maybe the kids can make some cookies, or we can make a basket for them. And I said, you know what I think maybe is better is they probably won't eat our cookies. There's probably a halal place that we can go to and maybe bring them some halal treats. So I asked someone in my office and said, hey, do you know any good halal places around here I can get a good basket? Normally I wouldn't tell this story in public, and it's not something that I'm bragging about, but so I went. He said there's this place in Patterson, the best. You'll love it. They'll know what it is. It's a great place. So I went to this place in Patterson, and realized I probably didn't get a lot of Jewish visitors. Similar probably to your situation. I felt like when I walked in, the music stopped. And they were looking at me, and the lady behind the counter went to her manager and said, "Can I serve him?" And he said, "Yeah, you could serve him." And I said, I felt like I had to explain myself. I said, "It's not for me. I have a neighbor across the street. I just want to get them a basket. You know, what do you recommend?" He gave me a basket, and I dropped it off at the neighbors, and it was a good way to connect, and I felt good about it. And I do want to encourage trying to bring some unity to this community. And it's just very quickly, the second story, because I know I only have 35 seconds left, is on Sunday night, my wife and I were supposed to go to an event, and we saw that there was something going on Route 4, so we decided to take local traffic. And we went down Teaneck Road on Sunday night at around 7 p.m., and there was this Palestinian car rally going on. And it was very intense for us. My wife was very scared in the car, and they were driving erratically and yelling things at us in the car with seemingly, because I had my yarmulke on, and I don't know. I'm an unapologetic Zionist Jew, and I would like to be friends with all my neighbors.
Thank you. Someone on this side, Mr. Berliner.
Lower Northwest Cumberland Confederation. With respect to Rabbi Friedman, I urge council to not support a Dean Kaczynski Day. For anyone who has worked with the manager, every day is Dean Kaczynski Day. The future is a long time, but I guarantee that we will be hard-pressed to ever have a child of Teaneck serve as well in his many roles across 4+ decades of service. Thank you again. We have made progress in Teaneck. Our elected leadership has come together in a united front against hate within the township that we call home. Wait, no, apologies. 6 out of 7 council members denounced the hateful rhetoric, harassment, and threats of violence against neighbors, friends, and constituents. Mayor Pagan, Deputy Mayor G, Deputy Mayor Council Members Schwartz, Goldberg, and Organ. Thank you. We do not always agree on politics or policy, but I appreciate that we agree on this. That leaves only one of you. All you have to do is repeat after me. I denounce the hateful rhetoric, harassment, and assault on the citizens of Teaneck, whoever and wherever they are. Anyone who brings and creates this platform for anyone to come to Teaneck will be shunned. This is not a First Amendment free speech discussion. Just because they can doesn't mean you should. I hope that we are better than that. I hope that you are better than that, or want us to think you are. You see how easy that was? If making such a statement scares you, then we have a larger problem than budgets, ethics, cell towers, or good and welfare. Last night, had you been there, you would have seen an actual flag of a terrorist organization raised in the streets of Teaneck. The largest banner last night displayed the symbol of the flag of the PFLP alongside a photo of a leader who was imprisoned for organizing the assassination of a senior Israeli minister. While this group has been active since the 1960s, hijacking airliners, firing rockets, and attacking civilians and synagogue worshippers, since October 8th, 1997, the U.S. State Department has designated them as a foreign terrorist organization. Does that date sound familiar? This is who you brought to Teaneck. There was no exaggeration pointing and calling them terrorists. This is who marched across from a synagogue. This is who was protesting an organization who tends to the dead and mutilated. The best I can hope for is that you didn't know this, ignorant of the details, but I do. We all have to. As elected officials in the United States and our elected officials here in Teaneck, I hope you appreciate the optics and nuance of your actions and with whom you associate. If you do not agree, denounce. The world is watching. Communities are learning. Your legacy is being written. This wasn't a closed event with an art exhibit featuring a painting of aircraft adorned with USA and the Jewish star, dropping bombs that had a Jewish star roundel. What comes next? Hooked nose and tentacles, side locks, and passion plays? As I tell my children, understand the impact of the friends you choose and the associations you make. I don't enjoy leaving my family to come and spend it with you, but until I know that everyone can meet this lowest bar of leadership and decency, I will be here. If today you do not stand up for me, for my family's safety, who will it be tomorrow? Yesterday was the PFLP. I hope I don't find out what's next. Your move.
Thank you, Javi. The gentleman in the polo.
David Mirsky, Teaneck resident. I want to thank you, Mayor Pecan, Deputy Mayor G, Manager Kaczynski, and esteemed council members. I want to start with a traffic request that was sent to the manager's office last week, which was immediately jumped on. So, Manager Kaczynski, I don't know, after 4 years, you're not slowing down. So, thank you for that. But I do want to bring to everyone's attention, and it was addressed at one point before about the traffic that is happening between 95 and Route 4 through the country club streets and so on. As more young families move to Teaneck and as young children become older, the dangers for them become greater. As their independence increases, from playing on the front yard to riding bicycles to learning how to drive. I've seen parents, older siblings, and have personally had to drag kids from the street to a neighbor's yard to remove them as a car speeds by, exceeding the speed limit by easily 10 to 15 miles per hour. And I know that there has been a sign put up that will alert drivers when they are going a little too fast. However, it does not illuminate. I don't know if there's a plan to connect power to it, but it's also going one direction. Additionally, there does need to be a stop sign on Alpine and Club where they intersect with Bennett. I see way too often cars flying around these corners. There's no yield. There's no stop sign. There was even, unfortunately, a police officer who had to skid to a stop coming from Alpine as I was driving on Bennett. There are no signals there, so if there could be that addressed as well, it would be much appreciated. So item 2, how much time do we have? Great, cool. After sitting through the last 2 council meetings, the last one ending after 1 a.m., I echo the resolution about adjusting good and welfare. I agree with the proposal that Teaneck residents should take priority in speaking, not just in person, but also online, as they are residents with concerns that we do want to hear from. To that end, I would also appreciate that we hold the requirements of Zoom, that callers have their name and camera on and permitted to speak. Fake names and accents do make it a mockery. It is special that we as Teaneck, as one of the few municipalities that are able to continue using Zoom, let's keep it used and with decorum. Lastly, I would like to add into the resolutions for good and welfare to keep it to good and welfare of Teaneck, not to be used as a soapbox or to waste time, stoke hate, and more violence. My request is to not allow for our council meetings, your time in our town, to be hijacked and abused. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Someone on this side, sir?
Brett Pevin, Teaneck resident. I just want to
What,
express
what was your name? I'm sorry.
Brett Pevin, Teaneck resident. I want to express my gratitude to all of you for the time that you give for us to speak and all the time that you spend making Teaneck a great place to live, even though we're going through certain difficult times right now. I also want to thank some of the people who spoke today who really are looking to reach out and create bonds to everybody. And I also want to thank some people who spoke who probably stand on very different sides of very tense issues that I do, but spoke in a very respectful way. And that's the way that we bridge gaps. The one thing I'd like to speak to today about is fear mongering. It's a term that's been thrown around, but I'd like to tell you about what my last 2 weeks have been like. The synagogue that I go to has been forced to increase the amount of hired security, 24-hour security at the synagogue. That's not from us being afraid, it's the Teaneck police who has suggested that to us. We've also had to have members of the synagogue, including myself, who have had 24-hour shifts at times because of that. Getting up in the middle of the night to police the synagogue with 911 ready to be pressed is not something that we need to do. That's not us doing it. That is the Teaneck police who are asking us to do that. That's not fear mongering. That is true fear. With regard to the protest several weeks ago, I was standing on my block on Downing Street. Cars were driving down it, honking horns, obscene gestures being made. I don't know if that's fear mongering or not. I was not afraid. I refuse to be afraid of this, but those are actions that are meant to intimidate us. In terms of yesterday's protest and counter protest, thank goodness there was no overt violence, and to that we have to thank the Teaneck police. I know that there are some people that feel that that they might have been faced the wrong way. I have a feeling if they would have turned around the other way, it would have been where they're facing us because they're looking at us because they think we're doing something wrong. I saw a lot of tension on the face of the police, of the Teaneck police. It was a very tense time. They were very tense. They could not have handled it better, and I commend them for that. Some of the things that I saw there, again, under the guise of fear mongering, I have a picture on my phone, geotagged, of several members there who are holding up anti-Semitic symbols on their phones and showing them across to the pro-Israel counter protesters. That was meant to scare us. In addition, I saw several gestures. I'm just a 54-year-old out-of-touch dad. And when I saw these gestures, I had to Google them, and they were overt gang gestures meant to intimidate us. Again, it's not fear-mongering. It's people who are actually going out and trying to scare us. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Brett. Mr. Rockland.
Michael Rockland, TNEC resident. It's actually my first time speaking here. Normally I'm on the Zoom side, but I was very excited that we have a resolution on the agenda tonight for complete streets. Now, my son at home is 4.5 years old. He recently learned a joke in school, and it goes like this: why did the chicken cross the road? Now, the answer is not in his mind to get to the other side. It's to not get hit by a car. And the reason that that's where he takes that joke, at least some of the time, I'm trying to get him to say the normal joke, is because when he was about 2.5, my wife was pushing him across the street at the intersection of Queen Anne and State Street, and a car making a right turn hit them. And that car was turning right on red. That car was luckily not going very fast. The person stopped. TVAC and the TNEC Police Department responded appropriately. And thank God they are free of any physical injuries. But very obviously, it is still affecting my son 2 years later, more than 2 years later now, I think. And, you know, I just bought a house right across the street on Golf Court. We're excited that we're going to be moving in there shortly. When I hear about cars speeding down Country Club Road or Bennett Road, that worries me. And we hear about how, you know, the police department can do a better job enforcing speeding laws, that they can do a better job ticketing people for all kinds of reasons. But at the end of the day, they're not going to stop all the cars. You know what does stop cars? You know what does actually help the problem? Designing streets for slow speeds. Designing streets for all users so that people, whether they're old, young, children, the elderly, adults, children, whether they roll on a wheelchair, on a scooter, on a bike, whether they drive, are sitting in the passenger seat, or riding a bus, or whether they use their feet to get around, are safe in the streets. That's what Complete Streets is all about. And so I look forward to the day where our chickens can be running in the street. No, that's a little bit much, but I look forward to the day where, you know, we can all trust that no matter how we get around, that our streets are safe. And I really, really thank you all for taking this seriously, for leading. In Bergen County, there was a rush of a bunch of towns a bunch of years ago who jumped on the Complete Streets bandwagon. Our neighbors in New Milford, in Bergenfield did this a long time ago, and it was just words on paper. And so I implore you tonight to pass this resolution 7-0, and then make sure that this is actually something that gets implemented. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. The gentleman in the back row.
Nathan Light, TNEC resident. About 6 months ago, the council put out a resolution that denounced the barbaric actions of Hamas against Israeli and non-Israeli babies, toddlers, men, women, and children, both from Jewish and non-Jewish faiths. I would like to say thank you to the council for openly expressing that condemnation. The reason why your resolution was so important and why I am thanking you for it today is because there are people in this room and on Zoom who continue to justify those horrific crimes against humanity. I'm not talking about the people who make belligerent statements based on conspiracy theories from TikTok videos that the terrorist attack of October 7th never happened. Rather, I want to speak to those people who defend the October 7th attack by saying something along the lines of, this war didn't start on October 7th. Let's put aside for now the broken moral compass of these individuals that somehow justify the gang raping of women, burning children alive, slaughtering civilians at a festival, kidnapping babies, and so on. But it's true. This war did not start on October 7th. These individuals like to claim it started in 1948. However, this is false. We had a history teacher speak a few moments ago. So those interested in natural history should be aware that the local Arabs in the region of Palestine began a civil war in 1947 to exterminate the Palestinian Jews or drive them out of the land, eventually leading to the surrounding eventually leading the surrounding five Arab nation armies to join in. The result of that war was thankfully Israel's victory. But the truth is the conflict did not start then either. Decades before the state of Israel declared its independence in 1948, Arabs were killing Jews in Jewish villages in the region known as Palestine. As early as 1920, dozens of violent riots and attacks were perpetrated by Arabs against Jews. Perhaps the most horrific example was the Hebron massacre of 1929, which saw close to 70 Jews tortured, mutilated, raped, and murdered in cold blood. So the war did not begin on October 7th. It did not begin during the Palestinian Intifadas or the Yom Kippur War. It began before there was a Jewish state. And in truth, these acts of violence against Jews were merely links in a long chain of similar incidents against Jewish people in the Middle Eastern countries over the past 1,400 years. I would list them all, but I would need 30 minutes to do so, let alone 3. I have them printed here for anyone interested. Al Jazeera, feel free to take a picture of this. These acts of persecution, violence, and murder were not due to illegal settlements or false accusations of genocide or ethnic cleansing. These heinous acts of terror were perpetrated for one reason and one reason only: unbridled anti-Semitism and the refusal to allow the Jewish people their own independence. And it is these same motives that fuel the protests and spreading of lies and one-sided narratives in our hometown of Teaneck. I am not afraid of those whose aim is to antagonize our community or demonize the Jewish state. I am not afraid to speak the truth. I will not be afraid to do so at future council meetings. And I encourage my fellow neighbors committed to genuine history to not be afraid to do so as well. Thank you again.
Thank you, Nathan. Lady in the front.
Hello. My name is Angie Nassar. I'm a journalist for AJ Plus, Al Jazeera Plus. I've been in Teaneck for the past few days observing, asking questions, and trying to document what's been happening in the town since the war on Gaza started, and even well before that time. My job is to listen to people and report what they're saying. In fact, the whole point of journalism is to ask questions, to hold people in power, to account, to document what's happening, and to inspire knowledge-based dialogue, maybe even to inspire change. I was at the event last night. I presented myself as a reporter for Al Jazeera, and in a crowd of hundreds, unfortunately, I was singled out and harassed, screamed at, insulted, intimidated, followed, bullied repeatedly by people who showed up to support Zaka. Unfortunately, there's some familiar faces here in the room who were a part of the abuse I faced. I was treated like an agitator for asking questions like, what do you think about people coming here to protest Zaka? And also, unfortunately, almost nobody would speak with me. I really want to be able to give everyone I can in this community a fair opportunity to explain their side of the story. I'm sure there are so many sides of this story to tell. As I said, my role here is to ask questions and hold powerful people like you guys. You guys are all very powerful to account. It's one of our greatest democratic achievements to be able to question the people who represent our communities and have so much control over our daily lives, things like, you know, potholes, and those really are important things. But there are elected officials on your council who refuse to respond to my requests for an interview. I came here tonight in good faith after multiple requests for an interview with Hillary Goldberg to ask questions that give her an opportunity to explain her side of the story. And this is according to what residents have told me tonight. I wanted to ask you some questions. You yelled over me repeatedly, so I want to give them here without being yelled over. Councilwoman, your actions have led to children in this community receiving death threats. How do you feel about that? Councilwoman.
Miss, if I can interrupt just for a second. What are you saying, Mr. Attorney?
According to residents.
Wait, if you could just give the attorney a second.
It's up to you if you enforce it, but we've previously been enforcing policy about directing comments directly to the member.
Yeah. Would you be willing to try to talk to her after the meeting? Because you're a reporter asking questions for an article, correct? Or if you could just ask the questions without names, as Deputy Mayor G is pointing out.
Council people, some of your actions have led to children in this community receiving death threats. How do you feel about it? Council people, what you are doing to ensure, council people, what are you doing to ensure the safety of Muslim, Arab, and Jewish residents who've told us you're failing to protect them and who've said some council members are responsible for fomenting more divisiveness? And council people, why is support for Palestine in this community perceived as an attack on Jewish people. Lastly, I just want to say what happened on October 7th was horrendous. Over 1,000 people were killed. The world was outraged, and the world and many members of this community are equally outraged for the suffering of Palestinians. People have given you guys the numbers. Almost half of Gaza's population is children. The people here just want the war to end, and they want freedom for Palestinians. They want the release of hostages and prisoners. I just hope you can all really listen to each other. That's my last request. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else in chambers? Miss, this is the last person in chambers. Yeah, actually, before you speak, ma'am, I make a motion to extend the meeting to 11:30 so we can get through the consent agenda. All those in favor, please say aye. Sorry about interrupting.
That's okay.
Please go ahead, ma'am.
Ruth Cohn, Teaneck resident. I really did not come here planning to speak, but I could not let that be the last speech given tonight. You may be a wonderful person, but please note that a journalist is someone who uses at least 2 independent sources for any so-called facts that are printed or broadcast. And unfortunately, your organization has not done that.
Mr. Siegel, please don't interrupt. She's addressing the council. Please address the council.
Thank you. On that note, I would also like to ask that perhaps there may be some history and context here that I'm not aware of, but when you're talking about a resolution to clean up the good and welfare portion, why not limit observers and Zoom and people here in the audience to Teaneck residents? It's supposed to be Teaneck Council, Teaneck business. Why are we opening it up, as some municipalities do, but most do not? It should be Teaneck residents only. So please perhaps add that into your resolution, ordinance, whatever you call it. The other thing I would just like to stress is that, again, as mentioned before, people coming here without permits, causing a ruckus, raising HELL in our town should not be acceptable. And I would urge you to work, town management, town council, police, bring in the governor and the AG if necessary. Let's all work together and make sure that laws are maintained and preserved and kept. And the police should give summonses and or arrest people who are not following Teaneck laws. Thank you.
Thank you, miss. Mr. Schwartz, I think you wanted the floor.
Yes. Okay, thank you everyone for coming out.
Wait, are you making a motion to close good and welfare?
Sorry, yes, make a motion to close good and
I
welfare.
think you said you're going to do that at 11.
I apologize. Make a motion to close good and welfare.
Second.
There's 366 people, 20, it's going between 20, 23 hands.
All right, we have a second.
You want a roll call?
Yes.
And who was the second?
Me.
Councilwoman Karen Organ with the second. Is closed good and welfare. Councilman Schwartz.
Yes.
Councilwoman Belcher.
No.
Councilwoman Goldberg.
Yes.
Councilwoman Organ.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Katz. There's 22 hands up, Deputy Mayor. Deputy Mayor G.
No.
Mayor Pagan.
Yes, because we have work to do. Mr. Schwartz, can you start us off, please, with the response?
Yes, I will, and I'll limit my conversations to the Teaneck issues that are brought. First of all, just a clarification from our first speaker. Deputy Mayor G was indeed there last night, and I just wanted to make sure that that was said because it was not, her name was not included. Thank you. As it relates to Zoom, a few comments, Mr. Clerk, if there's some type of countdown clock or where we don't have that pause where people know an on deck button or something, I'm not sure like if there's a way people can tell if they're on deck or not, but we're seeming to lose some valuable time on that. If that's something you could look into. To whoever made the comment about 566 Teaneck Road and the historic status becoming a hindrance, if they can please email myself or Councilwoman Belcher, who replaced, years ago, I served on the historic preservation, and now she does. If we can take a deeper look into that, because if that's a hindrance, that's keeping the property, unutilized, that would be something we should definitely take a look at. Not to say we could remove it, but definitely an option. So whomever owns that or mentioned it, please have them email either of us. Ms. Hassan, you had mentioned meeting. I would love to meet with you. My cell phone number, 917-902-9303. Please text me so we can set up a meeting. Ms. Khanna, in regards to the comment how the Alfred Avenue apartment building ruined the neighborhood feel, as I've said at pretty much every meeting, that building is built in an industrial park fronting Route 4. And I strongly believe that was an excellent place to put that building, and as did the planning board in prior councils. Lastly, Ellie Not Why Katz, you made some comments about a change to the streets over there. If I could please ask you to email me what you're referring to. It was very hard to take those specific notes, and it was a very specific comment. Thank you very much, and again, thank you for everyone coming out.
Ms. Belcher.
Okay, thank you, neighbors, for coming out and voicing your concerns. I just want to start out by saying a quote by Martin Luther King that is, every man of humane convictions must decide on the protest that best suits his convictions, but we must all protest. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter. In spite of temporary victories, violence never brings permanent peace. Peaceful protests, civil disobedience is a pillar of our democracy. These tools, such as protests, was used during the civil rights movement that brought about change, lasting change. The very man that we're quoting today was a staunch advocate of civil disobedience and protests of the people by the people. It's important that we don't talk past each other, but rather we have compassion for our neighbors. We have tolerance for our neighbors. Leadership means answering to a higher standard, as difficult as it might be for some. Let's be about the people of Teaneck. I feel strongly that we stop talking past each other, but we rather talk to our subject matter experts, our attorney, our chief of police, our DPW, our township manager. These are the people that are our subject matter experts. It's not running to the state of New Jersey, nor is it running to the federal government to solve for our divide, but it's rather us doing the hard work, doing the hard lift. Living together means that we talk to each other and we try to solve for difficult problems. American democracy says that we as Americans have the right to peaceful protest and civil disobedience. Good and welfare should be about the business of the people. I will always be on the side of the Constitution. I will always support the enforcement of laws that we have on our books now. How much do we want to do and to be about the people's business? I know I want to handle things like potholes and leaf collection and affordable housing, but in these last 6 months, we haven't been about the people's business. So I encourage my colleagues that we find a way back. I denounce and always have denounced hatred of all types. Hatred cannot live in Teaneck. We are better than that. I suggest that we all seek means to engage with each others by attending events like Tea Talks and Teaneck Race Amity Peacemakers events, that one is being held tomorrow night at the Baha'i Center, and that we be about returning to the people's business. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Belcher. Ms. Morgan.
Thank you, Jesse, for taking down the temperature in the room always, and with your outfit. I am very much in favor of going back and only doing the people's business. I wish there's nothing that feels better than naming a street on a Saturday afternoon after a beloved rabbi on Windsor Road. or fixing a pothole for someone, or getting a sign put up that says deaf child lives here, be careful. These are the things that we love to do, and these are the things that we're able to do to fix leaf collection so that we don't get complaints, and to call Dean or Tom and make it seem effortless when somebody's street has ice on it and suddenly the DPW appears and salts it and we're all heroes. But what's been happening now in town is Sundays spent with people reaching out to us, calling and texting and calling and texting because they're afraid and because they feel like laws are not being followed and because they feel like they're being terrorized. It's talking to people and trying to take the temperature down so that fires aren't fed fuel until they erupt because people are feeling fear and people are feeling anger. And so while we call all the things that we love to do the work of the people, as leaders here, we still have to deal with this. And there are cycles of this in town. We've gone through it before. And I'm sure people long after us will go through it. I think what we're seeing right now is very different, unfortunately, than what we saw with Dr. King. Peaceful protests and civil disobedience are not what we're seeing now. And I wish that from this moment forward, we could stop everybody from coming and protesting. I wish we didn't have to think of calling the state or the attorney general or the prosecutor or attorneys who specialize in this to say, what can our police officers do right now? Because we don't know, because we've never had this here before. And I wish that we didn't have to call in the state to say, Teaneck is being targeted right now. What can we do? And that's the reason why we're reaching out, because the laws are unclear. And we don't ever want to put our police officers in a position where they could get hurt or they could do something that they don't believe in. So I wish there was a simpler answer to this. I hope and I pray that from this moment forward, everybody will settle down and the temperature will lower here and everybody can go about living their lives and going to the library and going to Cedar Lane and eating ice cream and doing the things that we love to do as the days get longer and the weather gets better. But that can only happen if things stop now. Otherwise, we'll do our best to settle things down in whatever way we know that we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Organ. Ms. Goldberg.
First, I want to thank Rabbi Schreier and Rabbi Friedman for coming tonight. I know they have to go. I want to thank the police for their hard work. I know they are emotionally and physically exhausted. I watched them get spit on and abused at Keter Torah on March 10th. I watched last night as they also got spit on, and I was horrified when I watched one of our officers get yelled at with anti-Hispanic hate speech by an associate of Nardine Kiswani. And I did forward that video to our manager today to make sure that officer is okay. Racism is unacceptable, and I was horrified by the words, and I condemn them. Seeing Mr. Leon in his chicken suit is refreshing. Mr. Leon knows that I support chickens. My family actually does own a chicken farm in Israel. I was at B'nai Yeshurun last night when, within our lifetime, whose leader praised Hamas as resistance after the barbaric terrorist attack on October 7th and denied the rape and sexual mutilation committed by Hamas. The barbarism that Ms. Kiswani calls a lie and resistance is the gruesomeness to which the volunteers of Zaka were forced to bear witness to. I was at Keter Torah on March 10th as I watched for 6 hours as a violent protest took place where residents of Teaneck had paint thrown on them, water bottles thrown on them, where residents of Teaneck were told to go back to Auschwitz, and we are still raping your hostages and Nazi salutes. I have been at every single protest that took place in this town, minus the one on October 17th, where a protest permit was taken out by a Board of Ed member because I sat in this seat condemning Hamas for breaking the ceasefire that existed on October 6th by murdering the most amount of Jews murdered since the Holocaust. As I walked to B'nai Yeshurun last night, afraid, because I questioned all day and I cried and I prayed that this wouldn't be the night that changed everything. I prayed that it wasn't going to be the night where our shuls were broken into and desecrated, as shuls were desecrated and burned and destroyed on November 9th, 1938. The world did change on October 7th. The world changed because Hamas invaded more than 20 communities within the internationally recognized sovereign territory of the State of Israel on the Jewish holiday of Shmini Atzeret. And the world changed when more than 250 hostages were kidnapped and more than 100 still remain, where 19 women are still enduring the brutal sexual torture by their captors. The world changed when 19-year-old Tenafly resident Eden Alexander was kidnapped, and when 10-month-old Bibas Kfir was kidnapped and still remain. Jews around the world and in Teaneck collectively knew it was coming. We knew as protests began in Teaneck on Teaneck Road a week before the resolution condemning Hamas was introduced. Hamas counted on those life experiences of Jews to spread propaganda not seen since Nazi Germany. And that same propaganda which led to Kristallnacht, and the same propaganda that is being used now to turn the world against us today. What Hamas didn't count on is the October 8th Jew. What Hamas did not count on was unity and strength and courage and determination of a unified people. And I find it so sad as I hear all of the people who call the resolution divisive and call out for unity. Meanwhile, since its passage, I have seen people who have never sat in a room together, have coffee, shake hands, apologize. I even took a picture because I couldn't believe it with my own eyes. And we have found common ground and civility to work together, for those that will speak. Every day I get calls and emails and text messages, as I'm sure so many others on this dais do, from residents telling us the words in those resolutions gave them strength and comfort, and they are grateful that they have elected officials who are brave and courageous enough to condemn terror outright. And every day I get residents still telling me that they're afraid. And we have heard residents express that at the last meeting as well. And I am reminded of the importance of that resolution. Thank God last night was not Kristallnacht in Teaneck. I was proud how a scared community faced those calling for the death with the words from River to Sea, which is quoted in the Hamas charter as a call for death to Jews. And instead of responding with fighting words, they responded with music and dancing, and it was beautiful. And I will call out anti-Semitism as I see it every day, because I will not accept the normalization of anti-Semitism in Teaneck. I will call out anti-Semitism, and if it's weaponizing it to you or propaganda, then you are the reason that I will call it out. Because Jewish residents in Teaneck are not safe until the anti-Semitism here ends. Because shuls in Teaneck are not safe until the anti-Semitism ends. And when you say Zionist, you mean Jew. And when you tell us to go home, we are home. And when you say from river to sea, it has one meaning and one meaning only. And I will not stay quiet while death to our residents are said in the streets of Teaneck. I am tired, but I will not rest, because serving Teaneck and representing Teaneck means also representing the Jewish community of Teaneck, whether they are Reform, Conservative, the Orthodox, or October 8th Jews.
Thank you, Ms. Goldberg. Deputy Mayor Katz.
Yes. As far as 566 Teaneck Road, I looked it up though. It looks like it was sold in January of this year, but I don't know if that's accurate or not. I do want to second the request for that crosswalk for Herrick Park, especially as we continue to beautify that park. I think it's important that we make sure that that's a safe passage for the people that are going across the street. I'll tell you that I didn't write down a speech, so please bear with me. I'm going to try to speak from the heart, but my heart is really broken sitting here tonight. I've heard from many residents, and I've met with many residents over the last 6 months from all over the community, but specifically from the Muslim community and from the Jewish community. And my theme, first of all, you'd be surprised some of their feedback and some of the common denominators and some of the common concerns of safety between all of them. But my theme has been the same, and it's more stronger today. And I speak really to the residents that are watching and the residents that are here. And that is, listen, it's quite obvious that there's going to be differences as far as the opinion of what's going on 6,000 miles away. And it's also obvious, without saying it, that nothing that is said in this room by anybody is going to make a difference of what happens 6,000 miles away. And if it does, then you shouldn't be sitting in this room. But what is also obvious is that tomorrow We're all going to be neighbors. And for many, many years, the Jewish community of Teaneck and the Muslim community of Teaneck have really enjoyed a very unique relationship of living side by side together as friends, as neighbors. And what's happening now is really causing, in my opinion, some irreversible erosion of that relationship. And the war will end. And we're going to be neighbors. And it's going to be a very difficult future here in Teaneck as we continue. I don't want to just say words. I actually want to say an action item. And that is that I'm willing to sit down with any community members to
Please, if we can not interrupt him.
Okay, thank you. I'm willing to sit down with any community members who have the same interests and that are aligned, that recognize that this is not good for Teaneck. This is not good for the reputation of Teaneck. The comments of getting calls from around the country, around the world, I've gotten calls from. To have Al Jazeera here, well, you know, is I guess proof that we're making it into this national stage. And I'll tell the Al Jazeera members that are watching at home, this is not what you think. Teaneck is a wonderful place, the best place to raise your family, great place to shop, and certainly great place to eat and live. But we're going through our challenges as the world is going through theirs. So my request is, if you genuinely, and the people that said, by the way, oh, I feel so bad for you that you're sitting here and you have to sit through all this and you have to, I feel, honestly, I'd prefer to do this and have this dialogue together than what happened and what's happening with these protests. The protest last night was a real change in what's happening in the past. The Jewish community has been told to stay home, sit back, let people who want to protest go through town. It was important for the manager and the police department to make sure that nobody gets hurt, especially not a resident and not our amazing law enforcement. But what happened last night sent a clear message that the Jewish community is not sitting back anymore. And it's not now a matter of if somebody is going to get hurt. It's a matter of when somebody's going to get hurt. And we're going to have more than just Al Jazeera here in Teaneck when that happens. So if you do genuinely care about your property values, the town, then I ask you to reach out to me and let's sit down and continue to have this dialogue. No, we will not solve what's happening 6,000 miles away, but we'll continue to talk and have dialogue and be respectful to each other and try to reset a little bit of where we were as a Teaneck, as a community 6 months ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Mr. Clerk, I make a motion to extend the meeting to 11:45 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor G.
So first, I'm just going to start and say that I'm disappointed that we cut off good and welfare again. There were over 20 people still waiting to speak. I will repeat that rather than trying to redefine good and welfare guidelines, let's create the conditions as leaders that will leave residents with fewer reasons to log on or to come to council chambers to speak during good and welfare. I heard folks say today that this was therapeutic, just hearing from each other, right? I heard folks say, thank you for taking the time to listen. I heard my council colleagues say, I'm happy to stay as long as possible to hear from everyone. And so I know this is not how it will be every month. We are in a unique period of time. We should listen to our residents if they would like to speak. To that point, I also want to touch on the emails. We are getting a lot of emails from residents that are copy and paste. It seems like someone's sending out a link to click on the emails, and then we get about 5,000 versions of the same email. If you want to send it to the council, continue. But when you send it to our town manager and when you send it to our chief of police, they're missing really important emails because they're busy filtering through the repeat emails. So if anyone who is out there knows who's organizing these emails, please keep the town manager and the police chief off of the emails. Just send it to us. We can filter it. Someone asked the question, why can't we just limit good and welfare to Teaneck residents? Can you imagine in Jim Crow South, they said no one who's not from here can speak? People have to have the right to speak out if they feel something is wrong, even if we disagree. And so to close off good and welfare to just Teaneck residents, I think could have unintended consequences long term. That's why we have to allow anyone to speak at our good and welfare. Can we give Teaneck residents priority? Absolutely. Absolutely. But we cannot close it off to anyone who is not a Teaneck resident. I think that would just set a horrible precedent. Someone had a very mundane question about the cell phone tower, so I just wanted to touch on that really quickly. We believe that if we're able to sell the cell phone tower this year, it could save us a lot in tax revenue. We don't have the exact number. The cell phone towers currently generate some income every year, but the technology is changing, and we're concerned that if we wait to sell the tower, it'll lose value over time. So it's something that we're considering. We're happy to answer any more questions folks may have offline about that. Finally, I wanted to touch on something that my council colleague, Deputy Mayor Katz said. Nothing we do here as it relates to issues in the Middle East will have an impact in the Middle East. I know folks continue to come and talk about it. I think we opened that door when we passed that legislation on October 17th. I don't believe we should have passed that resolution. And I don't say that because I absolutely believe we did it with the right intent. But I think the consequences of passing that resolution, where we're seeing these protests every day, where we're hearing from residents that they don't feel represented by this council, I think we made a mistake. I think we should stay out of international affairs. I think on the dais, we should talk about Teaneck. We should speak on Teaneck. On our individual platforms, by all means. But on the dais, let's stick to Teaneck. And that's what I plan to do going forward. I've heard a lot of proposal about how can we enforce local laws? Like if we enforce those laws, it'll stop these protests. Yes, 100% agree, let's enforce our local laws, but I don't think let's laying down the hammer is going to stop the protests. It's not. I think the way that we address what's happening in Teaneck is we all have to come together as leaders and model the behaviors that we want to see in this town. That means we need to listen to one another. We need to give each other grace. We need to give everybody grace, right? And try to look at things from different perspectives. And I heard that from so many people today. And so I'm optimistic. I was optimistic when I saw Rabbi Schreier walk over to another resident and shake his hand. I was optimistic when I learned that our advisory board on community relations are going to start their empathy training. I'm optimistic because I think if we continue to have that mindset of giving grace and listening and hearing from one another, we can really start to create the Teaneck that we all know and remember. So that is that's my last statement. I'm really going to stay optimistic, but I know we're going through a tough time. Thanks.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just want to say thank you to all of our residents for coming out tonight and participating, and to all the residents who brought up local municipal issues. We were taking notes on your comments, and we'll be following up with our manager and staff at Town Hall to help, so thank you. Mr. Manager, is there anything you would like to say or add
Sure,
before we move on?
Sure, just a couple quick things. Herrick Park graffiti, we're on. We'll take care of that during the week. Palisade and Griggs, we looked at that intersection. Recently, there was a crosswalk there before Palisade Avenue was recently resurfaced. It was not ADA compliant to do so. We have to put in new ADA ramps and the rubber platform there. Country Club, we notified Waze about diverting the traffic pattern and keeping them off of Country Club. Engineering makes the recommendations for speed bumps. They're going to have to look at that area and see if the data supports from the police department the need for speed bumps there. And we will reach out to DOT in the morning to get that blind spot covered with the mirror at Alfred and Decatur.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Our next order of business is the consent agenda, and all matters on the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature by council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If any discussion is desired by council, that particular item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Mr. Clerk, can you please read the amount of the bill list into the record? Yeah, after he reads it.
Okay.
Yes, Mayor, we have our consent agenda, which consists of a few sets of minutes, Resolutions 100 to 107-2024. 107-2024 is not in your agenda packets. That is the resolution that we walked on this evening. And the bill that's 107-2024, Deputy Mayor G, that was the one that Councilwoman Organ walked in regarding cost sharing with the state, and the bill list in the amount of $1,643,512.43.
Ms. Belcher, I think you wanted to pull something from the consent agenda.
Yeah, I'd like to make a recommendation that we pull 107 to 2022 until we confer with the chief of police, the DPW, and even the sheriff's office, so that we are engaging with the stakeholders so that they can give us greater visibility before we approach the state. I think it's incumbent upon us to exhaust every possibility before we take things to the state or to the federal government. So I just simply ask that we pull it for tonight upon our ability to speak with the chief of police, DPW, and the sheriff's office.
Yep, procedurally, it'll be pulled right now, but then we're going to vote on the consent agenda unless someone wants to pull anything else, and then we're going to come back to that measure. So is anybody pulling anything else from the consent agenda? No. In that case, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second, Schwartz.
Just clarifying for Councilwoman Belcher, he's moving to approve the consent agenda without 107-2024. That will be pulled and talked about afterwards. I just want to be clear about that. So that was a first from Mayor Pagan to consider everything except resolution 107 on our consent agenda. I'm sorry, who was the second?
Schwartz.
Thank you, Councilman Schwartz. Councilman Schwartz.
Yes, on all except bill list number 24-01376. That's 24-01376 and 24-01451, which are public notices put in the Jewish link for abandoned properties that we hope to help the neighbors with.
You said an abstain, sir?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That was Councilman Schwartz. Councilwoman Belcher.
Yes.
Yes or no? Thank you. Councilwoman Goldberg.
Yes.
Councilwoman Organ.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Katz.
Yes, with an abstention on the bill list.
Deputy Mayor G.
Yes.
Mayor Pagan.
Yes.
Everything adopted.
Ms. Belcher, the floor is yours. I heard what you said. Do you have anything else to add before I open it up to any other member who wants to comment?
No, I just wanted to confer with our attorney to get some advice as to, what your position would be, in terms of conferring with the chief of police, the DPW, and other stakeholders before, we would take another step in terms of reaching out to the state, that we would confer with our own subject matter experts before we take the next step.
Mr. Salmon, and then Deputy Mayor Jeet.
I would say it's up to the council. I think you can go with either, with either one, whatever you guys are more comfortable with. The resolution is to essentially send a letter to the our state representatives to ask for really mostly financial help. There's nothing wrong with going to speaking with other members of the stakeholders, as you refer to them, with the township first, but I don't know that's required either way. So it's really in the council's discretion, whatever you guys want to
Deputy
do.
Mayor G.
So my issue with this resolution is I don't think it is necessary. We can reach out and ask for assistance without a resolution. By documenting this and writing it here, I think we're just stirring up more drama, to be honest. By calling out conflict in the Middle East, I can already see people starting to point fingers at whose fault it is that we're having to ask for more dollars. I just think it creates more divisiveness. If we need money, we can reach out to our elected officials for more money. We don't need to pass a resolution to do so.
Mr. Schwartz.
Do we even have state legislators in Teaneck? Because when was the last time we saw any of them in this town? Months. I don't think half the people in this room can name them. We've reached out to our attorney general, which has gotten us nowhere. I think I'm voting yes.
Ms. Goldberg. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Organ.
Yeah, we actually have tried many different avenues to reach the Attorney General to try to get information from them about what is and isn't okay. This is, I don't want to say a last-ditch effort, but this is just memorializing a request from them to come speak to us. The managers reached out, we've had organizations reached out, and we've heard nothing. We can't get them to respond to us.
Ms. Goldberg, what did you raise your hand?
Yeah, our residents are our constituents and they're afraid. And we've been begging and pleading and screaming from the rooftops for help. And they've been silent and they've told us no. So I'm in favor of this.
Anybody else? Ms. Belcher?
I would say that we want to exhaust all possibilities with our own people first. I mean, and we have the stakeholders that we're talking about are our chief of police. I've not sat down with our chief of police and on this topic. Our DPW, I've not had any conversation with him. You know, even our sheriff. So why would we want to reach out to the state, which you've already said there's been little or no response, versus reaching out to the very people that work for our township? Shouldn't we give them a first opportunity to help solve for the divide?
Ms. G?
So now I'm confused. Is this resolution calling for just financial support, or are you also from Councilman Goldberg? I wasn't clear if you were saying just financial support or more. You were saying when you said we need help, what are you asking for?
I'm not, we need financial support. We needed more police yesterday. We didn't know what to expect. Our residents are afraid and we need the help. And to say that we didn't talk to people, we have.
Ms. Organ, I think you were gonna say something. No, one person at a time, please. Ms. Organ?
I'm not sure what the DPW would do about this, and I know that the police chief needs more help, and that goes into planning when events like this happen. There needs to be an open line of communication with the state so that we can use their resources, and we haven't been getting that. The county's been helpful sometimes, but we had an incident with them on Sunday. So this is not, this is just reaching out to them as a council, unified, to say, hey, guys, we're here in Teaneck and we need your help. Notice us, we're having a hard time here. And that's what this resolution says.
Real quick, do we want to keep debating this or do we want to vote? Okay, one more thing.
Yeah, so today was the first I was hearing of the fact that we reached out. No one told me or asked me to reach out to my contacts. I just think if we had leveraged the entire council, that maybe we would have been more impactful. I think the fact that we're just hearing about this for the first time and then walking it on, I don't think we've exhausted all of our contacts and potential leverage all of our potential networks to have more of an impact. Just personally, my opinion.
Can I move resolution 107?
Mr. Clerk, we have a first and a second for the resolution. No, it's okay.
Very sorry. Was that a first from Councilwoman Organ? And then a second from Schwartz? Thank you. Apologies. Councilman Schwartz. Councilwoman Belcher.
I abstain.
Councilwoman Organ. I'm sorry, Councilwoman Goldberg.
Yes.
Councilwoman Organ.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Katz. Deputy Mayor G.
I abstain just because I think I can leverage my contacts and get to this without a resolution. Thank you.
Mayor Pagan.
Yes. So it passes, Mr. Clerk, and our next order of business is our introduction of ordinances. Can you please read the title of the ordinance into the record?
Yes, just give me 1 second. I apologize. Apologies about that. We have a tax map reference number in this ordinance that we're introducing, and we just wanted to make sure that that block and lot were correct. The only ordinance, Mayor and Council, members of the public, that we are introducing this evening is ordinance number 6, 2024, accepting the dedication of a portion of the property located at block 3003, lots 2 and 3. I'm just taking a quick pause, council, because in our packets it says lots 21 and 32. That's a Scribner's error. It's block 3003, lots 2 and 3. Lots 2 and 3 on the official tax map, more commonly known as Chadwick Road, for the purposes of developing and maintaining a public right-of-way cul-de-sac. That's ordinance 6 for second reading on May 7th.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I make a motion to approve on first reading.
Second from anybody.
Second, sorry.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman Schwartz. Councilman Schwartz. Councilwoman Belcher.
Yes.
Councilwoman Goldberg.
I have never been more happy to vote yes on this.
Councilwoman Organ.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Katz. Deputy Mayor G.
Yes.
Mayor Pagan.
Yes.
Introduced. We'll see you in May.
In that case, the meeting is over. I make a motion to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye. Thank you to everyone for coming out tonight and participating in person and on Zoom. We hope you have a wonderful evening.
Everybody get home safe.